Hello? Sorry. You would think that I would know better than to, whoa, hang on a second, what's happening here? Okay, much better. You'd think that I would know better than to push the live button while I'm going, but no, apparently not. So, all right, let me pause that. I'm gonna get confused. I thought I would do this a different way, and that was just gonna confuse me. So, got eyelashes sticking together. I'm a mess today. Okay, so I know we're starting an hour earlier than normal, so there's not very many people here just yet. So we'll just kind of hang out for a minute and chat a little bit before we get started. We do have 2 videos to go through today, unless you guys don't want to. If the overwhelming consensus is to just do one, we can do that. If you want to do both, we can do that. I know the Oscars are tonight, and there's probably at least one of you who wants to watch the Oscars. If all of you guys are, you know, dying to watch the Oscars, then we'll figure it out as we go along. I did not chapstick up before I sat down, and that's always a recipe for a bad day when I'm not chapsticked. So at least my finger wasn't up my nose. That is true, Yvonne. Very, very true. And Oscar who? Exactly. I don't remember the last time I watched the Oscars. I was probably in high school. Okay. So, what was I going to say? Nothing. I have nothing to say today, apparently. I am set up for demos. I am slightly handicapped in the acrylic demo department today because I'm dumb, and I have a bag with all of my heavy body paints and my brushes, and I take that home with me almost every night to just work on little things while we watch TV at night. And I was in a hurry this morning, and I was like, I'm not going to be painting at work today. I don't need to take my paint with me, so I left it there. Thankfully, I have another set of brushes here. So we're ready to go for a watercolor demo, and we can probably hobble along an acrylic demo if we need one. So welcome to everybody who is here in chat so far. Looks like we have Yvonne and Deb and Christopher and Cindy, and looks like that's about it right now. A couple people lurking. That's okay too. So, why don't you guys tell me if you tried both of the videos so far, if you did the acrylic and the watercolor, and just kind of tell me what you thought. You know, did you like one better than the other? Like the process? Was it your first time using watercolor? Was it not? Whatever. I would just kind of like to know what your experience was with it. Yeah, I thought that was really fun putting out 2 videos this week with the watercolor video. And I do have some ideas for some other watercolor things that I want to do very, very soon. I know for our first video, the bird was probably a little bit, I wouldn't say really advanced, but maybe for somebody who just has a little more experience with watercolor. But I have some things that I've been working on and some ideas and stuff to bring that into watercolor videos. So we should have some pretty simple things pretty soon. Oh, Mike did it in, oh, sorry, that's Lisa wearing a Mike suit right now, right? Lisa. Did it in 5 mediums. I remember seeing that. I think it was on Facebook that I saw that. That was incredible. Deb did the watercolor, and it was her first one yesterday, and she loved it. That's awesome. Yvonne hasn't tried either one yet, but wants to do the watercolor one. Awesome. Yeah, I had so much fun doing that watercolor one. I know the video wasn't the best, you know, with my camera all like at this weird angle. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out someday. We'll see. I guess I was filming at my table here where I'm sitting now, And I should probably just film at my workstation like I did in September when I did the little canvases then. That's probably what I'm gonna have to do. And yeah. So should we start with the acrylic video? I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. We'll start with the acrylic one because I think we're gonna have more questions for the watercolor one, and I think a lot of people are gonna start showing up closer to 2 o'clock when we normally. Christopher says, my acrylic birdie was a disaster. Aw, poor thing, I bet it was fine. And okay, let's get going on this thing here. And whoopsh. Nope, that didn't work. Whoopsh. There we go. I'm punchy today. I slept a little more than I did last week, but I'm still a little bit on the punchy side. Okay, as always, let me know how the audio is between my voice and the video here.
10 canvas. So this is just a little canvas.
If you can't hear it, or if you can hear it too much.
And I have a pencil.
Welcome Eileen, welcome Joan.
Sketching out where our elements are going to be, and then we'll put a little extra detail into our bird before we begin painting.
Oh, and of course I'm going to show you later what I worked on for next week.
And I kind of want another branch coming over here. And then we'll have a branch.
So I got a lot of mixed kind of reactions to drawing the bird. I had a lot of people thank me for showing them how to draw it rather than doing a tracing element, and I had a lot of people who were looking for the tracing element and really wanted that. So tell me kind of what you thought. Did you like drawing the bird, or would you rather have had a tracing thing, or
point of the oval here? It's kind of this way, and that'll help save.
Oh, Cindy likes my blonde. Thank you.
Body. Cute little pudgy belly.
My nose is so itchy today. I swear, it's not runny. I'm not like, you know, being gross. It's just itchy.
That down to the tail. And his legs will be.
Yeah, Lisa, it was, every time I drew it, it was completely different too. And of course, the times that it turns out the best are the times when I'm not recording. Like when I did the watercolor one, I did like a quick run through watercolor of it and then started recording it. And that quick run through that I did looks 10 times better than the watercolor one that ended up in the video.
The next color is the orangey brown, and it comes up around their shoulders a bit.
Yes, Joan, it probably is Mr. Moon hair up my nose. And he's shedding so bad. I guess it's time of year, but man, hair everywhere from that cat. Projectile shedding. You don't know the half of it, man.
I'm not going to worry about the details into the branches. I just really wanted to know where they were so that I could make sure that
and my poor little acrylic bird,
and I wanted to make sure I had room for
after I did my watercolor one, I look at my little acrylic bird and I'm like, ooh, you ugly.
Can be hard to erase.
I like my watercolor one so much better.
Background and then sketch it and have to deal with the pencil marks on the paint. So for the background, I've got some Mars Black, Ultramarine, and Titanium White. I'm going to use my 1/2-inch flat brush. I'm going to grab just the tiniest speck of black. See that? Not very much. About the same amount of the ultramarine, maybe just a hint more. And a good amount of white. I want this to be a nice pale.
How was everybody's week? Did anybody do anything fun this week?
Conflict with our bird.
Or this weekend? Or later today?
If you're not sure exactly where you want your bird, you can do the background last.
I know, my poor little acrylic bird.
Whatever you're the most comfortable with. I'm just going to paint over branches.
He's uglier than his little brother.
they're easy to put back in. But like I said, I just needed to know where they were going to be so that I knew where to put my bird.
Oh, poor Eileen.
Just soft pressure to get rid of brush stroke lines, heavier pressure to lay the paint down.
Ooh, I get to go to the Blick store tomorrow. I'm so excited. The black overpowered your background, Christopher. Yeah, you got to use just the tiniest point. The tiniest point. I don't even think I picked up black every time. Like right there, I'm pretty sure that's just blue and white.
It's okay if we accidentally go into his body a little bit. That's not a big deal. Because once we start painting in his body, we're going to go outside of his body and into the sky too. So they can overlap a little bit.
Oh, thank you, Donna. You're so sweet. It's a color of eyeshadow that I've had forever and I never ever wear it. And the other night I was like, oh, I'll just wear that one. And I was like, I like that one. Oh, good, Cindy. I have avoided the flu. I got the flu last year for the first time, probably since I was a kid, and it was awful.
So I decided to use a smaller canvas in this painting.
Jonas, how do you keep your blending area so small? I blend acrylics and it spreads across the glass. So do you mean on my palette? I mean, the paint's only going to go where you put it. So if your brush keeps going farther and farther out, your paint's going to keep going farther and farther out. So I pretty much just kind of wipe in the same area.
But you can do the exact same thing on a 12 by 16 or a 16 by 20, whatever you like.
But sometimes it does. Sometimes it starts kind of, I try and keep it as tidy as possible in videos at least so that it doesn't get confusing to you guys. But when I'm painting for myself, oh, that whole glass will just be like, pfft. It gets crazy.
Okay, so there's our background and I can still kind of see my pencil lines, so that's good. That'll help me when I go to do the branches.
Did anybody do a different kind of bird or just different colors? Or I saw a lot of variations in the flowers and that was really cool.
I'm going to go to my number 6 round brush, wet it in my jar a little bit. And you can use matte medium here if you feel like you need to. I may or may not. We'll see how it goes. I'm just getting a bit of white and pull it into the ultramarine. I want my color to still be pretty close to the darkness of the original color of the ultramarine.
What's on my shopping list for Blick?
A little bit more.
All of the things. Nothing specific, except I might buy a couple of like the 32-ounce jugs of basics. I have this huge 24 by 36 inch painting that I've been working on, and I'm using almost exclusively basics on it. There's a couple, well, there's at least one spot where I have heavy body on it, but I want to get some basics because I've been painting it with the palm of my hand, and this huge painting is almost entirely painted with the palm of my hand. And I'm going through a lot of basics, and this is something that I'm really enjoying doing. So there's a couple basics colors that I'm low on, so I may just pick up a few more of those so that I can keep hand painting on these gigantic canvases. Ooh, Cindy's gonna do a cardinal. That'll be awesome. Christopher says, how do you mix with your brush without getting gobs of paint all over the ferrule? I don't. I get paint everywhere. My brush is always caked all over the place. Just because it's not right there, it doesn't mean it doesn't get there. In fact, in the video that I just finished for next week, there's at least a couple spots where my brush is like, whoa, dude. that's globbed up. But I don't worry about it. One thing I can show you real quick on our demo area here, just to give you an idea of how you can get that off. Let's see. Are we? Oh, stupid thing. Please stand by. Are we back? No. Why aren't we back? Why is this not working? Okay. I don't know what's going on with my camera here. It should be. Sorry guys, one sec. If we want demos later today, then we're gonna have to get this figured out. Let's do that. And is that working? Whoa. Oh, there we go. Wow, that was weird. Okay. So my brush does get globbed up a lot. That's exactly why my bristles right there by the ferrule are blue, because I do get paint all the way up there, but I don't worry about it because I'd rather paint the way I want to paint rather than worry about that. But when I do get too much paint kind of globbed up right there, I'll kind of lay it flat like that and just like roll it and smear it so it kind of wipes it off of that area at the top there. And then when you're done painting, this brush isn't too bad because I haven't used it a lot. When you're done painting, you want to make sure that you wash it really good because it can dry down in there and then it starts to get really hard and pretty soon your brush only bends from about here up. So as long as you wash it really good once you're finished, I don't think it matters. I don't worry about that. But I know a lot of people worry about that. If you really want to make sure it doesn't get up in there, then really you just want to make sure your brush never goes into the paint farther than that. So just kind of like that rather than, you know, like the way I'll mix is get in there and really squish it. But if you're worried about that, just kind of like that with the tip of your brush. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if that helped you out or if I totally misunderstood your question, because that's possible too.
Okay, I cleaned off my brush and now I have some burnt umber and cadmium yellow
Vince decided to show up.
And
that must mean that the boxing
burnt umber
match that he was watching ended.
Just maybe the tiniest hint of the cadmium yellow, just to warm it up a bit. Tiny speck of white, just to kind of help with the transparency a little. Not really to lighten it a whole lot for this layer. And we're going to do the
absolutely, Christopher. It's fully permission to be messy. Absolutely.
To avoid the blue. In fact, see, I'm even.
I am 100% behind being a messy and
just
really,
make sure that you cover all of the little white spots between the colors.
Like,
and let that brown go outside.
What's the word I'm looking for? Not intuitive, spontaneous, maybe. Very spontaneous painter, and I think you'll see a little bit of that in next week's video. And I tried to keep it slightly less than what I normally do in next week's video, because I know that sometimes if I don't tell you guys exactly what colors I'm mixing up, people are like, I don't know what color that was. But like when I'm painting for myself, a lot of times, especially when I'm working in a limited color palette like next week and doing landscapes and stuff,
clean brush again.
It's possible that I can do almost an entire painting without cleaning off my brush once. You know, meaning I start with this color and I'm painting and I'll pick up some of this color and then I'll move on to this color, and before you know it, I've changed colors 5 or 6 times and my brush hasn't been cleaned off a single time, and it's all glopped up down to the ferrule.
Dimensionless. Starting right up in that brown.
And for me, that's a very free way to paint. If I had to worry about, oh, now I gotta keep my ferrule clean, now I gotta clean off my brush and all of that, it would take away some of that element of being in the zone. And that's really where I like to be in painting.
Overlap.
Especially when I'm painting for myself. I don't want to have to worry about, you know, brushes. I feel like brushes are replaceable. Man, if I damage a brush, I destroy it, as long as what I was doing with that brush is,
Don't forget
you know,
to
it
keep
was doing what
outside
I
of his
needed
body
it to
shape.
do,
Otherwise, he's
I
going to
can
look very,
get
very
a new brush.
solid and not fluffy and
So,
feathery.
yeah.
Okay, now to do the
I don't know,
highlights,
Yvonne.
we're
I
gonna
could
do
probably
the
I could
opposite.
probably give you
Rather
a
than
run
starting
for your
with
money in the
blue, we're
messy
gonna start with
department.
White. So I just wiped my brush off. I didn't clean it, and I'm just picking up white.
So
And
I'm
start
really
up
happy
here.
with next week's
Very
painting. I
small
have a
brush strokes,
feeling
just the
that
tip of my
a lot
brush.
of
You can
people
see
won't
there's
like it, and it's
not a lot
just
of
from
paint depositing. but
it's
also
just
because
from
that gray is still
experience
wet,
with
it's
similar
kind of blending
paintings
a
that I've
little
done in
bit.
the past, where people are
Trying
like,
to draw feathers necessarily.
"Oh,"
I'm just flicking my brush.
and then they're like, "I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Why did you do it like this? Can I just do it like this?" And but I made this video specifically to address those questions, although I'm sure I will still get those questions,
Quite a bit of white there.
even though I specifically address them. But sometimes you just gotta paint what you want to paint. So we'll see.
Let's go back into our brown yellow. I might put just a little more yellow into it this time.
Donna says, I've definitely found that it depends on the colors you have built up. Yellow is not good with buildup.
A little bit of white.
Depends
More
what you're
white than
doing.
last time.
I was using yellow with my built up brush in
he's looking
next
super
week's
weird
painting.
right now. That's okay. Same thing. Short little
Cindy,
brush
are you
strokes,
asking
putting
me
down
what the best
into
brush
that
for
white.
painting fur
Notice
feathers
I'm
is?
Absolutely. Picking
That's
up
going to depend
some of that
on what medium you're
That's
using.
okay.
It's going to depend on the look you're going for. It's going to depend on your personal preferences. There's not an answer for that.
Our colors are too
You know,
separated.
what one artist might find to be the best
gonna look
brush
very
for
stiff.
one thing or the
I
other,
don't want him to look really stiff. I
they
want
might be
him
the
to
only
be
person in the world who feels that
heavy.
way. Yeah,
You're
I don't
picking
think
up
you
too
can
much
say
of that
this
white.
is
Just
the
wipe it
best
off.
brush for this technique. When you walk away midstream in painting, how do you keep your paint wet? On the palette? Is that what you mean, Joan? I don't. If it dries out before I come back, I just get more. I try to only put out about, or even a little less paint than I think I'm gonna need.
I feel like this blue is up a little or down.
You know,
a little
unless
bit
I
too
know,
high,
okay,
so
I'm gonna
bring
need
the brown
quite a bit of
just
paint,
little
and I'm
bit
gonna use it
higher.
all right this second because I'm covering a background or something. Other than that, I'll just put out a little bit because I can always get more. How do I get my white to cover wet paint? On his chest there, Christopher.
Just got some burnt umber.
I had loaded up
That color I
quite
just
a
laid on
bit
is
of
a little
paint. I had a
dimensionless.
lot of white
Put
on
some
my
darker
brush, and I believe that the
swipes in there,
gray
and I might come back
underneath
later.
was much thinner.
Make sure I put
So
some of that lighter color in
the
there, too.
you've heard this, I don't know, maybe you haven't. There's a saying in oil painting, what is it, thick over lean? Meaning you put heavier paint on top of thin
Lighten up
paint.
his belly
You can't put
just a
thin
little bit,
paint
so
on
I
top
took
of
that
thick
same gray
paint
color
because you'll either
they
blend
did
it
in the
away
white
or
section,
just dig
just add
into
a little more
the
white
thick
to it.
paint. But if you have a layer of paint that's kind of thin, even if it's still wet, and you take a heavier layer of paint, you can easily put it over top
Brighten
of it.
it up just a
It's
little
thick
bit.
over thin. Yes, thick over
Okay,
thin.
let's start working on his blue. So I'm going to get some of my
Welcome,
ultramarine,
Shaddy.
mix some more white in it. Get
Oh,
it
and
a little bit
Atra's
lighter.
here.
And we can just start kind of saying where those little highlights are going to be. See, my brush is barely, it's just the tip of the brush.
You guys are full of
Absolutely
some
let
good
it
questions
overlap that
today.
brown
Keep
a
them
little bit.
coming.
And we can go a little darker. Just pull a little more blue in there. Let's actually get a little poke of black and mix it in with our blue. Still want it to be obviously blue. Just a little bit darker and kind of roll some of it off. I don't want a ton of paint. I'm going to shadow his face just a little bit. Well, it's not really shadow. It's just a little bit of a darker feathers on his face.
I guess I shouldn't have applauded you guys for giving me such great questions today, because then that gave you performance anxiety and everybody got really quiet. Why black instead of Payne's Gray?
Kind of bend down.
Honestly, I bought a tube of Payne's Gray specifically for this painting, and then I realized, you know, Payne's Gray isn't a color that we've ever used before, and I think a lot of people are going to be like, what's Payne's Gray? I can't find Payne's Gray. And so I didn't use it. But yeah, Payne's Gray is, ever since I started in watercolor,
here by his tail, where his tail kind of hangs
Payne's
over,
Gray is like my go-to color. So I really want to start using it in acrylic. So you guys will most likely start seeing some Payne's Gray popping up.
If your feathers
but
are
that's
looking too
that's
fuzzy,
why I
like
didn't
mine were
use
looking there,
Payne's Gray.
just grab a little point of water, mix it in with your paint, and then you get a little bit more of
Yes, Cindy, absolutely. Cindy asks,
like
can you
a feather
add
and not just
acrylic
a
over
fuzzy bit.
watercolor after it's dry? You absolutely
blue,
can.
maybe a hint
In
of
fact,
white.
I don't know if it's in this book. I did one, and it's something I'm debating on bringing to a video, so I guess I can show you guys and let you help me decide. It might not be
Remember
in
his
this book.
feathers here
I
are
might not
no
have it
longer.
with me.
And the feathers on his chest. We're going to let those flick out just a bit.
Just going through my little watercolor book, and apparently at some point I was bored one night and I sketched a carrot. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. I sketched a carrot.
Get some nice highlights in there.
Why a carrot? I have no idea. I don't even remember doing that.
Don't worry if it's too bright. I think that might be a little too bright for me.
I don't think I have it with me.
And just get a little bit more of
My acrylic
ultramarine.
over watercolor painting. I'll look in this book, and if it's not in here, then I don't have it with me. But yeah, and it's really cool because then the acrylic stands front and center, and it pushes the watercolor into the distance, and really helps
Because
the
since he doesn't have his eye
acrylic
yet, he looks
be the
kinda
star of the
creepy.
show.
And it's hard to tell
It's exciting.
how everything
so
is
yeah,
coming
we can
together.
probably do that sometime.
You know, once you put the eye in, it's a little bit easier to see how he's coming along. So this is just black.
Oh, man, there's so
Your
many
eye is
ugly
too
things
big.
in these
Don't worry about
sketchbooks
it.
that I have.
Blue in the areas that you don't want his eye. I want him to have a nice,
No.
big, cute, round eye.
I don't have it. Ooh, you want to see my creepy
Some of that
abstract
black in his
figure, though?
beak as well.
I think he's cool. He's kind of creepy. Okay, let's see.
A little more of that. Ultramarine,
Christopher says when you're
dark
carefully...
color.
Okay, let me pause this for a minute because
Point of water.
this is going to require just a little bit of explanation. So, Christopher says, when you're carefully painting around an object, how do you deal with the ridge of paint that can build up on the border? I know you say use the end of the bristles, but it still happens. It still happens when you use the end of your bristles? Really? Because that's what I was just going to say. Use the end of your bristles. And that doesn't ever really happen to me when I use the end. Definitely if I use the side, you know, then it kind of pushes the paint out like that. The only thing I can think of is if it's doing that when you're using the edge of the brush, you might have too much paint on the outside of your brush as opposed to on the inside. So let me just grab a tube of paint real quick, and I will show you what I mean. And I have to find a brush to use. Man, I'm seriously not very intelligent sometimes. I can't believe I left all that stuff at my house. I'll be right back. Where is that brush? Use this color. And there we go. I think I have a canvas over here already. Oh. Okay, so let's put you over onto the camera. Okay, I've got some paint here. And my brush, I'm just gonna wet it. It's just a junky old cheap brush. So what I'm thinking is if you're still getting up when you use the end of the brush, then you might not be loading it like this. See how I'm not going like that and scooping up that big ball? If you've got that big ball of paint on the end of your brush, that could possibly push to the edge. So instead, what you want to do is pull some out with the tip of your brush and smash it in there. And it starts to kind of suck the paint up. When you pick the brush up, it sucks that paint up. So I have just as much paint in my brush, but it's not gloppy. It is on this cheap brush because it's so thin, but see, squish, squish, squish. And it keeps it nice and smooth. And then when you come in, the edge of your brush, it doesn't matter how hard you push, you're not going to get that ball on the end. But if I do it this way, see, you can see that ball right there rolling down the edge. So yeah, if you load it properly, you should be able to do it like that and not get that little blop on the edge at all. So let me know if that helps. Or like I said, if I misunderstood the question, because I tend to do that sometimes. I'm going to keep going because we have a few questions here. Lisa said, I noticed no background on the watercolor one, so I didn't know what to do and tried and failed. So with watercolor, you really can, you know, if you want something to be white or light colored, you can leave it. You don't have to paint it. I think that it's different than acrylic like that. It looks totally okay if you leave a background, just the paper. But we will fill in. We'll have paintings where we fill the entire sheet of paper. I promise that will happen. Yvonne says, I have a habit of sometimes loading too much paint. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're doing. Sometimes you want tons and tons of paint, and sometimes not. If you're trying to control it, you want it smooth. You want make sure that your brush is very smooth if you're trying to get any kind of control. If you're trying to be very expressive or really cover a large area quickly, lots and lots of paint. But otherwise, make sure you wipe that brush through the paint, not scooping, and keep it nice and smooth. Let's see. Yeah, You can't try and paint everything in one brush stroke. I mean, some things you do, some things you want to, you know, try and be like that, but other times not. Just know when. When to use what technique. And Christopher's now calling me a show-off. It's my job. It's kind of my job to show off. Okay, let's jump back to this. But yeah, guys, you guys have some great questions today. I really like when we have lots and lots to talk about and discuss and go over, so feel free.
Feather-like brush strokes out there. Let's take some of that around the front of his eye. Up a bit. Oh,
man, Mr. Moon is just totally ignoring me today.
Big angry eyebrow. I'll take care of that. Just little hints of this dark.
Oh yeah, Cindy, I bet that's really pretty. She said I did the background with lots of water in a few spots and it spread, so it looks like abstract birds in the distance. I thought about doing something similar with to make it look like there were branches and maybe flowers in the distance, so kind of give them that like that bokeh or blurred out type effect. But ultimately, I thought, okay, I think I'm throwing enough at these guys. For this being our first watercolor video, maybe we should take a little bit easy, so I didn't do anything like that.
Dimension that I'll get from the different layers. I just don't want him to look angry. And see, just after a couple little brush strokes, he already looks less angry. Brighten it up right here between his beak and his eye. So you can keep going back and forth. So if you don't like the way he's looking, you know, just let the part that you don't like dry and paint over it. A little more white.
Should probably mute my phone while I'm working.
There we go. Now he's starting to look fluffy. Just a little point of white, and then I just kind of wiped it on the glass so I didn't have a blob. Right behind
Put it on speaker. It was just email. I don't answer my phone.
some nice bright little bits.
If it rings, I don't use my phone for that.
Some teeny tiny little bright bits in here. Say that is where his wing overlaps what we can see of his tail. So by putting that brighter color there, so it's right up against that darker color, it's going to help us see that. Might actually pull the edge of his wing in just a little bit more. I think he's looking pretty good. I think I might be almost done with him. Let's just kick some of this back a tiny bit. There we go. A little pinpoint of white right on the end of my brush. Just off center on his eye. Oh, we gotta fix up his beak too. So I'm gonna get some black, just a bit, a little bit of white, kind of wipe it, and then just come in here and see there's a little highlight right in there. And I may come back and add more to him later, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to wait until after I've done the branch before I do his legs. So let's go ahead and do the branch now. So I'm going to grab some ultramarine, some burnt umber. I'm going to mix them together. They give me a really nice grayish color. And this is closer on the burnt umber side, if you can tell there. can redraw your branch with your pencil if you like. I'm not going to, because I can still kind of see it. So I'm going to start over here at my thinner end, kind of wiggle my brush and twisting it a little bit from side to side just so I get some variation and a few, you know,
Did anybody paint this on a different size canvas?
More natural and lumpy. Putting more pressure on it as I move down. And I had another branch.
Any suggestions on how to practice with a round brush other than just painting with it? I'm not sure what you mean.
Another branch over here.
What is it specifically about a round brush that you're having a hard time with?
Let's pull a little bit more burnt umber in there.
Ooh, Atra's going to do it on a 16 by 20.
A little bit.
Go, girlfriend.
And we can reach.
I think Cindy, you did this on.
I'm doing
what was it, like a 24 by 24?
I don't know if you can see. I'm kind of going like this as I do my branch. And I know that, you know, we've done that quite often, like in the Summer Flowers on the Fence video. I think might have been the first time we did it. And I hear a lot of people talking about how they had the hardest time twirling the brush.
Welcome, Summer. Good to see you.
What could be difficult
Christopher,
about that?
I guess it really depends on what it is that you're talking about. Like when you were trying to do the feathers.
Every Sunday,
was that
Saturday
the issue?
or Sunday,
like
I do
getting
what we call a viewing
fuzzy
party with the people in my
that
Patreon group.
Really is going to boil. Oh yeah, 20 by 20. Cindy did.
Watch
That's a nice big bird.
Previous week's video.
Actually, the bird was quite small. The whole I loved, the whole frame.
You know, just
thing.
to get a little bit of a better answer to the things that they didn't understand. And I do demonstrations. And brush twirling.
I'm totally lost my train of thought.
We talked about.
Oh, Christopher.
And I finally understand what it is.
Tell me specifically what
with brush twirling. So we will go
what
over
you had the hard time with.
A second.
Like, was it making the little feathers?
If that
was
sounds
it
like
the
something
pressure on the brush?
You can join my YouTube sponsorship. Just click the sponsor
What
button
was the
on
specific
any one of my
issue?
videos,
And then we can address
or
that.
join my Patreon at the $5 level.
Fuzzy.
And we do that every week.
The feathers weren't really feathers.
So it turns out
so if the edges were
having a hard
fuzzy,
time twirling the brush,
then
what they were doing was
there's a couple things
that
it could be. It could be your canvas. If your canvas was very, very toothy,
so if they were trying to make
quite
flower,
rough, then you'd probably want
spinning
to
the brush really fast,
gesso it and then
that,
sand it a little bit, or even just put down a couple coats
or
of
they
matte
were
medium.
trying to draw, let's say, a flower petal.
If
like
that's
that.
not it, the
Trying
other
to keep
thing
it in
is
straight
water.
line while still twirling it. So they're doing one of these things.
Yeah, we'll do a quick demo. This will only take a minute. Okay, so let me get a round brush here. Ooh, that's a crispy round brush. I haven't used that one in a while. We'll get a different one. Apparently I need to clean that one. Okay. So I'm going to wet my brush a little bit, and then I'm just wiping it on my paper towel so it's not terribly wet, okay? So I'm going to get some blue paint, and again, I'm doing that mash and kind of pulling it back so I'm not getting a blob. But you want to kind of turn it around as you do it so that it gets all around the outside of the brush, not just on one side. And then kind of twirl it as you pull it back, and that's going to help you keep a sharp point. Now my brush is pretty dry because I wiped a good amount of it off. So I might get one line that's pretty crisp, and then after that it starts to get really fuzzy. So I'm just going to touch the point of the brush into the water. See that the brush is not submerged, it's just touching the surface of the water. Now I'm going to come back into my paint and just mix that little bit of water in with the paint that's on my bristles already. I didn't really pick up any more paint. Now I can come back into here and I can get more crisp lines. You're only gonna get a few. It's not gonna last for a real long time. You'll have to go back and get a little bit more paint and water. And this canvas is quite toothy. This is one of those ones that I don't typically like to use because it's not real smooth. I do feel like I have to go back and get a little bit more paint and water more often than on other kinds of canvases. But that's how you're going to do it. you're really only going to get a few brush strokes. And the temptation is there to see all this paint that you've still got and to push harder to get it. But then you just get a really big fat line. So just get the 3 or 4 or 5 brush strokes that you can out of it. And then a little bit more water, a little bit more paint. Do it again. So hopefully that helped. Let me know if that was helpful to you. Whoa, we almost started over.
Sure that line stays straight. Well, there's no point in twirling your brush if you're gonna just try and force the line to be straight. So what it is my focus is just right here. I'm not paying attention to what the tip of the brush does. I really don't care what the tip of the brush is doing. That's the whole reason for twirling it.
Shadi says,
as I'm going, I know
if
that
I want to put a second bird, where should I put it?
To end there. That's it.
That's
now I put my brush
that's
there.
really up
Notice
to
I'm
you.
not putting flat pressure. My
Think
brush
about
isn't flat. It's just the tip of the brush.
the composition
and now,
and
between
everything.
here and there,
you know,
I'm just going
if
to
you're
focus
going to have 2
rolling
birds,
from one
you really
side
want them kind of interacting with
to
each
the
other somehow.
That's it.
So you wouldn't really want to have like
I'm not
the bird that
micromanaging
we
what the
have
tip of my
here,
brush is doing.
looking off this direction, and then like another bird up here that's kind of like looking off in that direction.
And
then
that's how
they're
you
just
get these nice,
two birds kind of plopped
kind of
into the same
organic
scene. You maybe want to put them next to each
Don't
other,
try to
looking at each other,
make
or
a
both
straight
looking in
line
the
while
same
twirling
direction, or
because all that's going to do is frustrate you, and you get that
you know,
really stiff looking
you
line.
don't have to do all of the flowers. Maybe
all
put the other
about
bird up on that
putting it down,
top branch.
twirling it,
This bird is already looking
and letting
up there,
it
so
do
put one up there, kind of
what
looking
it's
down
gonna
at
do.
this one.
That's what brush
I
twirling
think with
is.
related
So if you've
objects
had a
like
hard
that, you
time
just
with
want to
that,
make sure that there's
pay
some
attention to
kind
what
of
it is you're
interaction
focusing
between
on. Are
them.
you
Otherwise,
focusing
it
on the
just
tip of
feels
the brush,
awkward
or are you
and
just focusing on getting
forced.
from point A
I
to
feel
point B
like, and I
while
could be
rolling
totally
your
wrong.
brush?
It's
Who
just how I
cares if
feel.
it goes off onto? See, I totally changed direction there. And if I were
Oh,
drawing
thanks,
a branch,
Audra. No, I have
perfect.
not done my
I would
hair
say,
for
okay,
weeks.
My branch has an angle there, and then it comes down this way.
When did I do this?
Keep twirling it.
I don't know, but I
And
have
see, now my branch changed shape.
at least a half an inch
and
of
I have
roots.
a much more
Probably more
organic,
than that.
natural
It's been at
looking
least a
branch
month.
than if I went, to draw a zigzag. So it's just like those flowers we did on the summer.
Oh, don't be
flowers on the
afraid of
fence.
too much water,
I
Christopher.
think I did put a little more
And I
pressure
don't
on
think
it,
that
but
what
it's
I
still
was
just
using
twist,
here,
twist,
I would never
twist,
consider that too
done.
much water. That's not too much water at all.
All of the flower petals.
You can tell if you start getting too much water because it
That's
starts to
it.
bead up
Okay,
on the
let's
canvas,
start
and
on
the paint
some
is
moss.
very, very
So I'm gonna get my
transparent.
ultramarine,
Um,
and I like to use the
and
ultramarine cadmium
but
yellow.
don't be
mixture for
afraid
green
of too much water.
because
You know,
I feel like it's a much more natural
I think that
looking
as a
green
general
than
rule,
the
like when we're
phthalo-
glazing and
phthalo
stuff,
blue
I try
yellow
to impress
mixture.
on you
That
don't
mixture
use
is super,
just
super
water.
bright.
Don't use too much
And
water. Because when you
I feel
go
like
back for
it's
another
not very
layer,
good
you're going to
natural
remove
green.
all of that.
Put a poke of
But
white in there.
sometimes
and this
matte
on the
medium,
bluer side
gloss
for this
medium,
first layer.
airbrush medium, all those
I'm just
things,
gonna start
they're
adding
not
some
going to give you
moss.
the look that you're going for. Only adding
And you
too
can
much
put it wherever
water
you want.
is.
I'm not going to cover my
And
entire
friends,
branch,
that's
but
what
you could.
spray varnish is for.
I'm going to roll it.
So as soon
See
as
how
you're
I'm rolling
done,
my brush?
spray varnish.
And notice what that's
if you're
doing.
afraid,
It's
you know, if
pushing
you're
it
like,
up toward the edge.
okay, I want to
When I
add more,
roll
but I don't want to
upward,
lift this,
push
then
my thumb
spray
upward.
varnish it, let it dry, and
that
then
gives me
keep
a higher
painting on it. You
concentration
can
of
do
that color
that. You can absolutely
up
do
on the
that.
top of the branch. But certainly you don't
But
have
don't
to
be
do
afraid
that
of using
if
too
that's
much
difficult
water.
for you.
I mean, there's definitely
just
times when it's
Kind of dash it
perfectly
on
okay
wherever
to
you
do
want
so,
like that. That's
you know.
okay too.
But there's definitely times when you really don't want to
I'm
do
just gonna
that.
Put it in a few places. You don't have to say this branch is completely covered in moss.
And as far as I know, airbrush medium
Dash it out a bit.
makes the paint take like a lifetime to dry, doesn't it? So you might find yourself overworking, or at least waiting for
We're gonna have some
things to
moss
dry
on
for quite a
this
while.
branch. Let's go even brighter. Just grab some of the yellow, a little point of white, because I'm using the basics cadmium yellow, so it's very transparent. I was going to use my heavy body, but I know not everybody has heavy body, and I've used my heavy body cadmium yellow the last few times, so I figured I'd give it a break today. I'm just going to dash it on here. That green that I laid down before is still wet, which is nice because then they're blending a little bit.
So who was here at the
But
viewing
that's
party
also
last
dangerous
week?
because if you overwork it,
Because
you're
last
gonna
week we
lose those
talked
colors.
about.
I want the colors to exist there together. And blend
Somebody
a
asked
little
about
bit,
underpainting.
But I don't want to lose one.
We
or
talked
the
about
other.
underpainting a little bit, and I said that I was probably going to do a video soon where I showed you
If you're
a couple
worried
different
that you
underpainting
overwork
colors and how
paint
it
and that you're gonna lose
changes
one,
the image. Didn't
then
we
just
talk about
let
that
it
last
dry.
week?
Let it dry before you move on to the next color. It doesn't have to be wet. I just kind of like putting the wet color onto the other wet color. And you can
Okay,
blend
Cindy says we did.
here
Okay, good.
into-
I thought I wasn't crazy. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing next week. So I will show you that after this video is done.
I'm so excited for spring.
I still
I don't know
have.
if you can tell, I've been painting
I
a lot
only
of flowers
did one
lately,
painting in the video.
which isn't something that I normally do. I don't paint a lot of flowers.
But I have 3 versions of the exact same painting with the exact
I'm
same
pretty
colors on the
excited for
top
spring this year.
that I'm doing, and then I'll just have a photograph for
Let's
them,
go one lighter
or a photograph
with
of
our
them.
moss color, and I'm really just going to use the yellow.
I don't remember
Maybe
why I
just
brought
a
that
tiny
up.
poke of white.
Anyway, that's what we're doing next week. My brain is just like,
Hints of it.
oh yeah, we talked
dash
about the
in
gnome, the garden gnome, and actually the painting that garden gnome showed up in is the exact same painting that we're doing next week. Sans gnome. He didn't show up in this one, and I didn't want to force it, and I struggled. I had a hard time. I don't know why. Like, I was doing the
If
painting,
anything
and
is too bright, just
about
grab a little bit
3/4 of the way
color.
through it, I was like, heck
Look at the
yes,
ultramarine.
this is looking awesome. And then all of a sudden, I was like, nope.
Dash into it a little.
And I was starting to get like frustrated
Moss doesn't have to be
because
all
like
green.
making a
little
correction in my video
Bits that
like of
kind
the
of look more
painting
orange.
while I'm filming
When
isn't
I
a
was
big
growing
deal.
up,
Like
we
I don't
had
mind
these 2
doing
black
that and
walnut
showing you
trees
guys,
in my backyard.
you know, when I make mistakes and how to
north
fix
side
them, because we all make
oak
mistakes
trees
and I don't
was
pretend to
really
not.
hard,
But
bright orange
I kept
moss. And it was
having
really,
to make
really
corrections,
beautiful.
and I was like, okay, at some point this
I
gets
think it's
boring.
okay.
They don't
Got
want to
some
watch me
bits
just
in
like
there that kind of
hobble
pure
through a
orange.
painting. They actually want to watch a painting, and so I literally threw down my brush at one point, and I was like, nope. And now I have less than a day to come up with something else to paint next week, and so I went home and I worked on a few
Colors you
things,
have
and
in
nothing
there.
was feeling right.
It's going to look a little bit more natural.
And I came back in the next morning and I looked at the
a tree is
painting
not
that
just
I'd
brown.
thrown down, and well, I didn't
Brown
throw
and
it
nothing
down,
else.
but you know, I took it off my easel and I was like, done with that.
I really like
looked
that
at it again and I
orangey
was like,
color. I'm gonna keep
This is
going with
almost
that for
done.
just
What
a
are you
minute.
talking about?
Just kind of
So I
popping
put it back
in
on my easel and I
here and
filmed for
there.
like 5
Adds a
more
nice
minutes.
contrast to the green.
And I was like, okay, my video's done now. So, but I kind of talk you through that because, like I said, I'm not ashamed of that, and I don't ever want to try and pretend like I don't go through the same things that you guys go through, because it's
Okay,
a
I'm gonna
thing.
take
It
my number
happens.
2 round brush, wet it.
So I kind of talk you through that in my
And
video.
I'm gonna
You know, I
take
tell you when
some
I
black,
start
maybe
getting
a hint
frustrated
of
and
the
why,
ultramarine.
and
And we're gonna give our birds some
you know, a
lights.
little
And
bit
they're
of
gonna
my
be very
thought process
simple.
with that. But ultimately, I'm very happy with how the painting turned out, and I'm not exactly sure why I was like, this painting sucks. I'm so done with this, because I think it's okay. I like it.
We can just insinuate.
But the
some
gnome
little
didn't show up.
claws.
Exactly after that's when you step away, and that's what I did. Came back the next day, and I was like, this looks great. What's your problem? Nope.
A little poke of white.
No garden gnome, Lisa, but you can add him if you want.
Maybe a little more than that. Just give a little highlight.
I love
feel like the feathers
underpainting, you
look like they're
guys,
on
and
top, or the
I know
leg
that it
looks
can
like
be
it's on
really
top of the
confusing for so many
feathers.
people. I always get so many questions
Just
about
get
it.
a little bit more of
It's
that
like-
grayish color.
It's
Whatever
like people
color the feathers
are
are right
convinced
there.
that there's something they're missing, that there's some
And you can
secret
just take like
to choosing a
one
color
feather,
for
just, like, right
underpainting.
over top of the lid.
You know,
And that
sometimes the
pushes
most
it
simple
into the
things
body
we
of it.
think it can't be that simple. there has to be more to it than that. And so we complicate things more than they need to be. And I think underpainting is one of them.
Brighten them up in here.
And so that's kind of my goal with next week's painting. That and Impressionism. I love painting and Impressionism, and so we're going to do some of that.
Right, I'm just going to make a couple of touch-ups.
I have a composition technique that I just kind of started working with.
Using my number 2.
I didn't see it anywhere. It's not something I ever learned. I just kind of started recognizing things in other images and was like, oh,
just to define it a bit.
If you look, that's in relation to this and this. I'm going to try that in my painting. So there's a composition technique that I'm going to show you that I've been messing with lately, and maybe it's a real technique that's out there. I don't know. But yeah, I hope that you learn a lot in next week's video. I really enjoyed it. Well, I didn't enjoy it the first day I filmed. But ever since then, I'm like, yeah, we're good. Deb says, learning to deal with frustration is high on my list of things to do. Girlfriend, it's high on everybody's list of things to do, including mine. Frustration.
Definitely needed.
I don't think it's something that you need to deal with. It's something you need to expect and embrace. Embrace is different than look forward to. I didn't say you had to look forward to it. But frustration, for me anyway, and everyone's different. There's probably people who are like, no.
Actually, I think that's okay.
But for me, frustration is part of the process.
A little bit more.
It's almost like a test. Like if you can keep going, if you can push through this layer of frustration, something cool is going to happen. You're going to learn something new. You're going to reach a new level in, something else.
Okay,
that doesn't make frustration
crimson,
easy.
Some naphtha crimson.
When it still hits, it's still like,
and some cadmium yellow indium. You can really use any color.
As long as you understand, okay, this is part of the process, and I have to
purples or blues, whatever.
Keep going.
I wanted to use
and then I
some
can
warm
learn
orangey colors because I feel like that will create a nice
frustration
becomes between the cool background and the cool colored bird. Have these nice.
It becomes something that you don't
colors.
Fear quite as much. Don't be afraid to get frustrated.
A little bit, just wipe a bit of that moisture off.
Just accept it.
I'm going to start with my naphtha
or
cadmium red, like I said.
Okay, let's see.
The same color. So
welcome, Dina. I'm glad you made it.
I'm just going to decide where I want some
Shaddy asks, can I paint over a varnish painting that I don't like anymore with acrylics? Yes.
In almost a random
you absolutely can.
So I'm going to use like the edge of my brush.
You can always paint over a varnish. It's like I said a little bit ago when I was talking to Christopher about not being afraid to add too much water. If let's say you add water because you want just drips and runs, but next you want to come back and paint on top of it and you don't want to remove that paint, use some spray varnish, let it dry, and then come back and paint on it. Yeah, so you can always paint on top of varnish.
See, I'm not really drawing very specific
Welcome,
flowers.
Dee. I didn't see you come in.
Maybe we'll do...
Dina's painting clouds on everything. Yes. Man, I haven't painted clouds in a long time, have I?
I'm just going to wipe that on my paper towel. I don't want to clean the red off. And I'm going to pick up
I think I avoided painting clouds for a little while because I was low and then I was out of stock on my cloud brushes. It was like, I know if I paint clouds right now, I'm going to get 25,000 emails every single day. When are your cloud brushes back in stock? So I was like, we're not going to paint clouds for a little while.
It can kind of be a little bit more separate. I'm really just doing like one, maybe two per little cluster. Now I clean
we should do some clouds soon.
And I'm going to get some alizarin.
We should do like a cloud study, right?
And I'm going to do even a smaller petal.
I can show you like several ways that you can do clouds.
Really just one.
Everything from cloud brushes, palette knife, watercolor.
This alizarin is quite transparent.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe that would be fun.
Now, don't judge your flowers.
Thank you, Dina. I'm so glad that you guys like these brushes.
They don't really look like flowers. Don't try and make them look like flowers. Just go with it, and I promise it will look much more like a flower in a minute.
Finger painted clouds.
Cadmium yellow. And a bit of my ultramarine. I'm using my number 2 round brush again. Mix up a green color.
I just kind of went far away and thought.
A little drop of water.
My wheels are spinning. I've got some ideas.
And let's do a few little stems. You don't have to get real specific with your stems. Just kind of start somewhere, come down, and then I'm going to put some heavier pressure and spin my brush a bit. So it's got kind of a thicker spot where it connects.
We're almost done with this guy. And then I'll show you next week's painting. And we can move on to our watercolor video. Woo! Big, like dark, stormy clouds.
A little bud out.
You're speaking my language, Deb.
We've got another one here. Just kind of up and push for a little nub on the end. Let's do more over here. Okay, down and a little bit extra pressure. So there's a bit of a nub where it joins the branch. Maybe we've got another little bud up there. Maybe this one comes right up the end.
I have a dog who does not like to let me sleep full.
We can highlight that.
I get like an hour and a half before he's like, hey, can I come up on the bed? I'm like, no, you're a 70-pound bed hog.
Whatever colors you feel like.
So I get about another hour and a half. Hey,
like it belongs on this
and he
branch.
Really does that. He like comes up and smacks the bed with his foot, and so the whole bed goes thump, thump.
A little stems on the other flower.
I'm tired. Tornado. You know, I've had people ask for tornadoes for like the last year at least, probably closer to 2 years. And I've never done one.
For a little extra yellow.
Well, not in a video. I'm pretty sure I've done a tornado on my own, but
it looks just a little bit different than the other one.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'm going to grab some yellow.
Who was it who said something about my palette being all tidy?
I'm going to give
that is not a very tidy palette right there.
A little bright spot on the end. Maybe it's about to start opening, and there's a little flower inside.
Cindy, didn't you paint a tornado at the retreat? Wasn't one of the paintings that you did there
a bit of a darker color if we like. And just kind of run that under the pods, buds, whatever they are.
Sorry, my mouse was in the middle of the video.
I feel like that yellow is a little aggressive, so I'm just gonna wipe a bit of it off. There we go. Okay, back to my filbert. Let's finish up the flowers and then we're done. So I got a little bit of ultramarine, a little bit of quinacridone, and a very dark purpley color. And if it's getting too purple and not dark enough, just grab a little bit of your naphthol crimson or cadmium red, whatever it is that you're using, and put it in there, because the ultramarine and this red will make a very dark color. I don't want a ton of this color on my brush, so I'm wiping a bit of it off. I just want a little bit. And wherever I put the alizarin crimson, I'm just going to kind of come in and dash in a little bit of a darker spot. A little bit of a darker contrast in there is going to help make these pop, look like flowers a bit more. They're just very impressionist flowers. Now I've decided that his brown on his chest needs to come in a little bit farther. So I'm going to do that real quick.
Will there be other retreats? I don't know. We'll see. Not this year. For sure not this year. It takes a lot of planning and preparation. The last one, Atra and I worked on it for, it was almost a year before it actually got here. And
I'm always telling you guys to stand back.
There won't be one this year at least.
Sometimes
I still kind of feel like I'm recovering from that. I still feel like I'm trying to get back on track
that I wish I would
after that.
Done differently. And this time I decided.
So, and there's a lot of
now
things that that I would want to change next time, as far as all kinds of stuff, materials, venue, everything, and yeah, I just haven't had time to even think about any of that stuff. So maybe next year, but for sure not this year. Let's see. Any other questions? Dina says, if you've never used watercolor, how hard is it to get what you need to do one of these? What do you mean, Dina? Like the materials? All right, so we will talk more about watercolor, and I'm fully anticipating that you guys are going to want some demos once we start the watercolor video, and that's perfectly fine. I'm all set up, got all my watercolor stuff here, brushes, paper, everything. So, do you guys want to see what we are doing next week? All right. So here is a little impressionist landscape that, this is something I've been painting quite a lot lately in varying compositions. It's typically, like over the last couple weeks, I've done several versions of this, always in different color schemes and everything. And the composition will be tweaked a little bit, like maybe it'll be a little closer to the house or a little farther down the road and you can't see the house, but it's always kind of the same general thing, but with different colors. So on this one, I did a quinacridone underpainting, and I'm doing 3 other underpaintings. I'm doing a cobalt blue, a cadmium red medium, and cadmium yellow medium, just to kind of give you an idea of how everything, the feeling kind of changes a little bit from the underpainting. The colors that I'm using on the top, I'm using the exact same colors for the painting across all 4 of them. And this is actually a very limited color palette. This is only 4 colors and white, and it's Diox purple, cobalt blue, phthalo blue, and cadmium yellow medium. So I have a lot of fun painting like this. To me, it feels very, very free. And I know that impressionist painting, especially with, kind of those wacky colors, kind of poking out around edges, I know that that's not for everybody. And, I always get questions about, why did you use pink? Because I wanted to. That's it. Because I wanted to. And I really, really, really love that quinacridone underpainting. If you look at the ground, see how warm the ground is, like in the road, particularly near the shadows. It almost looks like there's dirt, or it looks really earthy right there. Well, that's just because the greens that I put on top of it weren't solid. That's the quinacridone shining through. Look at how much I left, like around the barn or the house or whatever. You can see that quinacridone all through there. And I think that being able to see it a little in the sky or on the edge of the trees and all throughout there, it gives a cohesion to the painting that, it keeps you kind of looking around. I feel like you catch kind of that pink spot in one area, and it's interesting because it's such a different color from everything else. So your eye moves there, and then you catch another one from another area, and pretty soon, just because that pink is there and prominent, it kind of gets you moving throughout the painting. And so for me personally, I love quinacridone underpainting for landscapes. Eileen wants to know who's tracking my rants today. Okay, let's see. Oh, Dina, no, you should be able to get watercolor materials anywhere. I mean, the watercolor paints that I'm using, the ones that are in my palette that you'll see in the video, those are just Winsor & Newton Cotman paints, and you can get them at Michael's. They're pretty cheap, but I really like them. I think they're, I mean, I don't have a lot to compare it to, but I'm enjoying using them. And let's see, what else did I miss? Shadi asks if she can try this with a wash instead of watercolor. I'm not sure what you mean. You can do anything you want. Whether it works out the way that it does in watercolor, I don't know. But yeah, you can do anything you want. You may just get different outcomes. Brushes, Dina, I'm just using my brushes. Just my regular detail brushes. Yeah, we'll do a watercolor cloud, I promise. Okay, let me get our other video set up. And if you guys want to take a break before we start up, you know, if you have questions that don't pertain to watercolor that you want to ask before we, blah, 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 don't listen to me talking.
This is 7x4 paper.
If you have questions that you want to ask that don't necessarily have to do with watercolor, you can go ahead and do that now, and then we can start the watercolor video in a few minutes. I'm going to put on chapstick while I wait for somebody to ask a question. No questions? All right, we'll get started then. Oh, there's Mr. Moon. Now he's going to come meow at me. Meow. Okay, Nate, you have to be quiet because we're watching a video.
Here I have everything I'm going to need to do my bird watercolor painting.
I'll figure out the stupid camera angle.
A sheet of paper. This is 7x10, and I've taped it down to the back of an old canvas board. I don't want to tape it down to my table because
how do you prevent the hard line that watercolor makes when the water dries?
If I want.
What hard line are you referring to, Audra?
Watercolors here that come in the tubes, and then I just squeeze them into these little containers of my palette and let them dry. And then whenever I'm ready to use them, I just dribble some water on the surface of them. As you can see, some of them are kind of
like at the edge of your brush stroke?
And that gets them ready to use.
Mr. Moon's going to jump on the table and probably get blue paint on his feet.
Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus.
Stepping on my paint
And this
palette.
is white, and it's watercolor paint.
You can get rid of it
on the
by...
transparent side. If you don't have white watercolor paint,
no, do not drink paint water.
Watered down acrylic paint or gouache.
By wiping it away immediately.
And you can skip this part if you like. Now I know a lot of people say,
or applying it to wet
white
paper.
Watercolor. When somebody tells me never, I tend to do it anyway.
If you lay down
a pencil,
the paint on dry paper
soft, so this
and let it sit for a minute, that edge
will show up
it quite possibly won't come up. It's also going to depend on the type of paint that you're
have
using.
This gum eraser, and
so for example, the Winsor & Newton paints that I use.
The pencil off of the paper
playing with my paintbrushes, Kitty. You're
with
being
minimal
such a
damage
pest.
to the paper. And that's important because if you
they
scrub
re-wet
at the
and
paper
lift
too much with
pretty
an eraser,
well,
you'll kind of
but
rough up
like
the
the
surface,
Hydrus,
and it can affect your watercolor.
These
are just my
they don't lift real well.
Sell.
You get a hard line,
the same brushes
staying there.
watercolor with no problem. Next, I have a jar of water, and this is really important. This is what I'm going to clean my brushes in. And then I have this little jar of water, and this is where I'm going to get clean water from. With watercolor, even more so than acrylic, it's important.
He will not stay off of my table now,
so that you don't muddy up.
Did you guys see him in the video?
If your water has even a little bit of color in it, it can affect.
Oh yeah, the watercolor pens. Quite possibly.
And I have a paper towel. You're
because I think you have to put a little bit more pressure on them than you do with a regular brush.
Okay, so I'm going to start by sketching out my image. And I'm going to start
forces
with my
the paint down
just to
into
make sure I have room for my bird. Notice I'm holding my pencil back far. I'm not going to crank down on it like this, because then I run the risk of putting too much pressure, too much graphite onto my paper.
Cindy says, can you explain the bloom and what causes it?
So I'm going to work very, very loosely.
So
just kind of say my
the bloom is like when you put
right about here. Hopefully you can see these pencil lines.
Watercolor from your brush onto the paper and it goes whoosh.
Let's see, maybe we'll bring
and
that
is
a little bit more.
That's basically caused by the surface tension of water.
This
so to do that successfully, remember in this video where I start painting or I start applying the water to the paper, and I'm telling you that you don't want it, you don't want to see it pooled. You want to still be able to see the texture of the paper, because if the water is pooled, if you can see a puddle,
so just kind of
it's weird because the paint will just kind of stay where you put it. Like you'll touch it and it'll go into there, but it doesn't bloom. It just kind of goes, all right,
for his legs.
I'm just going to like curl up and kind of stay right here.
Just a little hint of a tail.
But if it's almost flat to where you can see the texture of the paper, it's going to travel out farther, much softer and smoother.
Pretty much the same way as I did in the acrylic version. He's going to look totally
That's Mr. Moon driving cats nuts all over the world. Huh.
And his beak is right.
And now he's sitting right by my microphone, so if he meows, it'll probably be loud.
And then I'm going to take my gum eraser and I'm going to erase all of the lines that I don't need.
Whenever I touch the top
sure
of his head with my
Make
brush,
sure you don't scrub down on that paper again, because you'll remove the top layer of the paper. And any lines that I do need, if they're too dark, I'm going to run over them with the eraser and just lighten them a bit, so that I don't have to worry about them showing.
Yeah, he kept jumping up on the table,
right there,
trying to drink paint water. He always goes straight for my paint water.
Lighten it a bit. I know you probably won't be able to see my pencil lines too much at this point.
Hey, I just remembered somebody a few minutes ago said something about gambouge.
As long as you can see it when you're
I was in the middle of a rant and then I forgot to go back.
When we paint in our bird, we're going to work very, very loosely.
Who said something about gambouge?
As simple as possible, because I know a lot of you have probably never used watercolor.
I don't remember what they said. I just remember thinking, okay, I got to go back to that.
With him. I'm going to use my number 6 round brush. And I'm going to wet it in my water.
Come here, Mr. Moon. Come here.
Remember, this is my clean water.
Come here.
So there's a good amount of water in here. I'm going to come right over
Your fans want to see you.
Pull some over here. And I know I don't want to go too bright with this.
Hey.
At least not right off the bat. Come here. Grab another drip of water. Or I'm sorry, I don't want to go too dark with it.
Laying on a palette knife
from
doesn't
our
look very
lightest
comfortable,
colors
Kitty.
to our darkest
He's actually laying
colors.
on
really
a palette
water
knife.
This down. We'll see how that goes.
You're making Bassett's call too.
Now, I don't want to take my brush. It's super
You should
loaded
apologize
up
to
with
Cindy for that.
I put
That's
it on
a really
here,
awful
it's
noise.
really just going to kind of puddle on my paper. In fact, what I'm going to do is roll some of that off, cleaned off my brush.
Oh, the crows are back. We get a lot of crows.
And I'm going to use my brush flat.
In the street.
I'm going to lay my brush flat, and I'm just going to kind of wipe
and
it.
they get up in a tree, and they're very, very,
very
loud.
Loosely, wherever I know I want that
Mr. Moon runs and gets in the window, and he's like, oh. He would have no idea what to do with a crow if he caught one.
I don't want puddles. I don't know if you can see in there.
See, this is where I was talking about that, Cindy, about not having puddles.
What you're looking for is you want to be able to tell when you look at your paper that it's wet, but you don't want to be able to.
I think I kind of
see a puddle.
Yeah,
so
we actually went over
the
that
texture of the paper
in our
then it's a
watercolor
puddle.
demo.
If you can see the texture of the paper, then you're probably good.
Puddles. And how to get your paint to spread.
So I just kind of took that through his head, down this part of his shoulder, down his wing area, and through his tail.
So let's see if I can find it.
Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of my color,
blank
watery
page.
color. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start, Mr. Moon's contributing to my painting. I'm going to start on his face, because right here at the front of his face is where I know I want it to be the darkest.
Oh, someone
So
liked saying gambouche. Yeah, I do. It's a fun word to say. And it's an amazing color
so it's
to
very,
use.
very faint.
It's my very favorite.
Down his
If you guys
shoulder
want to paint
here.
watercolor with me, I would make sure that you have Payne's Gray and Gambouche. So I'm going to use those a lot.
Cleaned off my
Okay,
brush,
let's
wipe
do.
out my paper towel.
Let's do a super quick demo. Just talking about the bloom, and then here I was talking about not having too much water on your paper. Oh, dang it! I need new paint water though, because my paint water is all blue. Give me 2 seconds, Mr. Moon. Just meow at them and keep them company for a minute, okay? No, you're not gonna do it? There we go. Do you have another one? No, just the one meow. See, I got my paint water and he's immediately going back for it. Do not step on my computer, dummy. Guys, look. He's going, you'd think that this cat doesn't have access to clean water. Go away. Get down. Thank you. Okay. I don't know what it is with him and my paint water. Okay, let me get a bigger brush. And I'm going to show you real quick. Hopefully you'll be able to see kind of the reflections, okay? So I'm going to do kind of a circle right here, and I'm going to load it up so that it's too wet. So when I look at it with the reflection on it, it looks like a puddle. I can't really see. Yep, see how smooth it is? That's too wet. So if I take, I'll just take phthalo green here, and I touch my brush into the middle of that shade, see? It didn't move. It just stayed right there. This whole thing is wet, but see, it's not moving around because it's too wet. So let's do that again. This time I'm not going to make it too wet. I'm going to put just enough on it so that it is wet, but I can still see the texture of the paper. See that? How you can tell it's wet, but it's not glossy and like it doesn't look like a smooth surface. So now I'll get some phthalo green. And it's going to spread a little bit more. It might take a minute. And each paint brand and each color is going to spread differently also. So I just run it along the edge there. Well, this one doesn't want to bloom, does it? Sometimes it happens really slowly. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. It is kind of magical. You have to get the exact right combination between water in the paper, water in your brush, the brand of paint. In fact, let me grab one of my Hydrus colors. But also sometimes it's the paint color. You know, some of them are made with man-made pigments, and some of them are earth pigments. And the earth pigments are probably typically going to be a little bit heavier because they come from, you know, like iron or rocks, different minerals. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit of this Hydrus one, and we'll see. See, that blooms a lot better. And this paper was just as wet as this paper. So that's just the difference between the paint, the actual paint itself. So let's do that with the hydrus. I'm gonna do a spot that's too wet, just like this one, and we'll see if we can get it to bloom in here. So again, I'm gonna add too much water. I'm gonna really get it puddled. More of that color. Yeah, we got some bloom in there. I'm gonna be careful not to touch your brush all the way to the paper. I'm only touching the surface of the water. Just like in the video where I was showing you to remove color, how I said only touch the surface. See right here how that didn't bloom? You know why? Because the way my paper's curled, the water is much thinner here where it did bloom. It's very, very thick and runny right there where it didn't bloom. It's right here where it's thinner. See, it's blooming more. So even though that did bloom and this one didn't, it's going to be dependent on, see right there, it's not moving because it's very, very thick with water, very, very wet. So I would say if blooms are something that you really want to be able to master, the best way to do that, oh my gosh, man, I'm not doing very good today. The best way to do that is to practice with and experiment with the paints that you have and the different colors. Don't just take one tube from one brand and say, oh, well that bloomed really well, so all of these bloom really well, because this color might, and I can tell you right now, this color won't. Should we do it? Let's do that real quick. This color won't bloom. I can almost guarantee it. Now that I said that, though, it will bloom just spectacularly, and I'll be like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. But this one, this is raw sienna, and it's one of the earth-based tones, earth-based colors, and I would be shocked if this color bloomed. Let's see. Nope. Let's put a little more water. Maybe it was too dry. Let's try it again. Is that sweater? Nope. Absolutely will not bloom. So that's what I mean. You can't just try one tube or, you know, one color from one brand and go, all of this brand blooms, because one color might and one color might not. But just remember, you have a better chance of getting it to bloom if your water is thinner on the paper. Too much water and it most likely won't. So I'm going to push play again, then I might have questions because I just rambled forever.
Started from outside his head.
I'll pause it again if I need to.
Because I like in watercolors when not all of the edges are defined. And so by leaving this area white, it will kind of say that his head is really highlighted and light back there. But we don't need any hard lines. Get just a little more of that color. See, I'm kind of rolling
How do you paint
my
without
brush
a
and
bloom?
pulling it away, and that gets off some of the color, the
I
extra
mean,
paint and
to
water.
some extent, it's gonna
Let's just
happen.
do that a little bit again.
But
right there where we know we want it.
if you don't want your
darker.
paint to spread, then you put the paint
Down
on
through here. Still
dry
using my brush just
on
flat.
dry paper.
I'm not trying to fill it all
See,
in.
like here, I'm not really getting a bloom.
Wash
Let
out
me
my
move my
brush,
camera
wipe that on
there.
my paper towel.
It's not really
If you have
blooming,
an
but
area
it
with a
is
line that's too
spreading
hard,
a little.
After you wash your brush and wipe it off,
If I didn't
lay
want
your
that
brush
paint to
flat with the
spread,
belly of the brush,
then I
so
would
the
want
middle of
to
the brush right on
make sure that
line,
I'm putting
just
it
wipe
on
right
perfectly
over
dry
it.
paper.
And that will help
Always
soften it.
remember with watercolor,
Get rid of
it's
any extra
that
paint
color
that you don't
is
want.
going to
And
go
soften this
wherever
too.
you
I
have
don't want a hard
moisture.
line there.
So if you don't want it to move, if you
A
want
little
to
color
say,
in his
I'm going to put
chest.
you here and I
Gonna
want
get
you
some
to
of
stay
this
here, then
yellow
you need to make
ochre.
sure that that paper is
Just a little
perfectly
bit of that.
dry. If
Quite a bit of water.
you're okay with it
Very
moving
thin,
around,
very watery
or you
color.
want it to move around, then the paper has to be
Roll some of
wet.
that off. And I'm going to come into his chest here.
So
Just
see
flat.
right there, And then I'm taking a slightly damp brush and just kind of like scrubbing that line
See,
away
it's
a little
almost
bit.
just kind of
and
implied.
everything just kind of spreads and evens out. And so that's how
what
I end up
watercolor
with
does.
like a hard line on one side because I didn't do that, and soft lines on the other side.
Loosely.
It's
So
just
allow
about where you
yourself to
put
work really
moisture,
loosely.
where you take
Let's get
moisture
a little
away.
bit more ultramarine into that mixture. So this color is going to be a little bit more saturated. Still kind of rolling off extra paint.
Yes,
Again,
watercolor
kind of
is
the
a
front of his
whole new
face.
world.
Still
It
using
really
my brush
is.
kind of flat.
Oh, you guys are asking about what color is Gamboge. So, I'll show you. We'll just go to here for just a second. Not very long. I know some of you probably actually want to watch this video. So, this right here is Gamboge. And I know that looks boring. It looks like brown. And it is not. It's incredible. It's so gorgeous. I'm super excited about Gamboge. Anyway, a little water. Let's moisten that. I'm going to get quite a bit of it. Isn't that so beautiful? It's such a magical color. I know I'm nerding out over a yellow paint. But look at that. It goes from this like boring brown to this vivid orange, almost a saffron, to this really soft, vibrant yellow. God, it's such a gorgeous color. Anyway, that's my favorite color right now. Mix it with a little bit of Diox purple or something, and you've got the most luscious, beautiful brown in the entire world. You will never need to buy burnt sienna again, or burnt umber, and nor would you want to, because burnt umber is just seriously a boring color after you use that brown. And we will do that very soon. It's my favorite color mixture.
Every time you see me go like this with my paper towel, that's
yes, Cindy,
when
exactly.
I cleaned it off. So,
so if you want to put something next to,
I've just cleaned off my brush.
Like your sky, like if you painted a sky, now you want to put a tree. If that sky isn't perfectly dry, your tree is going to bloom into it. So you have to wait until it's dry. Once it's dry, the paint won't absorb into watercolor paper anyway. The paint won't absorb and bloom out.
Still flat. Just kind of get in there.
So it's just like when I did his beak here.
See, that takes away
I
some of
said
the color.
that the dark color I was putting in his beak was gonna, expand out into his face. But I said that that's exactly what I wanted, and that if you don't want that, you have to wait until his face is completely dry.
If it dries all the way, with some brands, you can come back and re-wet it and fix it up. But with some brands, it's a little bit harder. I'm gonna break up that line and just let what comes off kind of fill in that white space a little bit.
See, Atra, here is how you can see how I got rid of those hard lines in his face.
Don't worry about super hard edges.
Yes, Lisa, that was a Winsor & Newton.
Your colors over
the Cotman paints.
Going outside of your line.
So with my Winsor & Newton paints, I can easily get rid of those lines, but if I were using the Hydrus paints for him, I probably wouldn't have been able to get rid of that line.
Could use
so
black,
that's another reason I say experiment with the colors that you have and find out
use an ultramarine burnt
what they
umber.
do. Do they lift? Do they bloom? Do they?
This is going to be darker.
Some
than
colors separate.
That's okay. I'm just kind of scrubbing it in.
And by separate, I mean
area.
you apply one color, and after it's dry, it looks like you've applied two colors.
And then break that up.
For example, the Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray separates, but the Hydrus Payne's Gray doesn't.
I don't really want to.
Separating might sound like a negative, like, oh, I don't want paint that separates. No. The Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray is my favorite because it separates.
A little bit more
saturated. But we'll go into things like that, as we go. I don't want to throw all of this at you and be like, know all of this before you begin. There's things we can kind of pick up as we go along. But inside of that here, I might have an example. Some of you have seen this. If you were at the watercolor demo, you saw this. But if you weren't, I'm going to show you what I mean about the Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray separating. Maybe, if I have it here. I don't know if I have it here. Oh, yep, there it is.
And notice I am working.
Okay, so this is painted, the background anyway, the foreground is painted with black acrylic or watercolor, but in the background it's painted with one color. It is painted with the Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray, and that's it. But after it dried, see how it's separated? It looks like there's some ultramarine, which there is ultramarine pigment in Payne's Gray. So it looks like there's some ultramarine. There's some areas that are gray. There's some areas that are almost brown. So it kind of looks like I painted like 3 different colors in this background. And I didn't. It's one color. It's just the Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray. However, the Hydrus Payne's Gray, it doesn't separate like this, and it's much more blue. And it's beautiful, but if I were to do this painting again, and we're gonna do this painting, I will use the Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray on this again before I'd use the Hydrus one any day. So separating is not a negative thing, but I want you to, whatever kind of paint you have, I don't care what kind of watercolor paint you have, I don't care if it costs you $1 million or if you got it for free at the dollar store, you know, whatever. Sit down and play with them. Figure out, you know, if they lift, if they separate, if they bloom, if they're transparent, if they're whatever. Just mess with them. Don't try to make paintings. Make color chart after color chart after color chart. I tore through probably 3 books like this right after I bought my watercolor paints, doing nothing but experimenting and just seeing, okay, what happens when I do this? Or let's make a color chart, or, you know, all kinds of stuff. So that's what I want you to do. And I'll try to quit gabbing. I feel like I'm talking too much
kind
today.
of quickly. And that's not because I'm practiced and I'm a pro at this. I am by no
crying,
means
Yvonne.
a pro at
There's
watercolor.
no painting
I haven't
worth
been doing
crying
it for
over.
very long. But I'm super enjoying it, so I really wanted to share it with you. But the reason I'm working
Can always
quickly
start over.
is to avoid working stiff. It's really easy, especially if you are used to acrylic. It's really easy to work super tight.
How long have I been doing watercolor, Mel? I just started
So I
at
intentionally
the
work
end of October.
super fast and loose in watercolor. So that I
Just
can
barely.
avoid that.
Swore
And
off
loose
watercolor
and blurred,
forever, and in
the only hard
October,
lines that I have
I was like,
is really
all right, I'm just going to
here,
try it.
and that's where his wing meets his chest. Over here, that's where feathers of one color meet feathers of another color, so there might be a little bit of blending there. But right here, I have a little bit of a harder line, just to keep some definition there between the 2 areas.
Welcome, Kate. We're glad that you made it.
But let's feather a little bit, because I don't want, you know, just like a solid line there. Break it up a little bit. I'm just using the tip of my brush.
You really want to make sure that you're working in layers in watercolor.
Areas. A lot of this is still
I know
wet, so
that
it's taking that paint and
it
spreading
seems
out.
like
Remember
because
that
they're
when you put
transparent,
paint
just
in an area
that there's
that's
no need
already
to
wet,
build layers.
see how when I touch,
But
it
I'm
kind of
telling
feathers
you,
out?
I would say more so
when you put
with
paint in an
watercolor
area
than
that's
with
already
acrylic.
wet, that paint
Layers
is
are
going to move.
important.
If you put
Very
paint
important.
in an area that's dry,
You know,
that
you
paint is
can-
going to stay there.
You can
and you'll
start
get a
doing
hard edge.
something
So that's
and have
why I
2
got this
colors
hard
that butt
edge.
up
The
against
belly
each
was
other
pretty much dry
and
when
look
I swiped
horrible.
down it.
Looks
But
so
over here, I
bad.
got a soft edge because both
And
of
then you
these
add another
areas were
layer
wet
on it.
when those
And they're
colors
also
were layered.
transparent.
So
You
these
can still
colors
see
were
all
wet
of them.
and mingle and overlap.
But now it doesn't look so
Let's
horrible.
grab
And you
a
add
little bit
another
of
one, and
Payne's
pretty
Gray.
soon you've got this really beautiful
Make sure you can see
merging
what I'm
of
doing. Payne's
colors.
Gray, I'm going to mix it in with
And
that blue. So see,
It's
now I have kind
super
of a
important.
midnight blue
Layering
color.
is very, very
I'm gonna
important in
start working on a
watercolor.
few
Please
shadow
don't
areas.
come
So I
to a
know I want
painting and
his
be like,
face a
oh,
little
he's Bluebird
darker
and he's lighter
than
right there, so
everything
I'm
else
just
on
going to
his
make
head.
it
I'm
dark
not really
blue
swiping,
here.
I'm just kind of
And
touching the
then
tip of the
wipe
brush.
the blue away
because
there.
that's still
And
all
he's
wet.
done.
See how
I
it's
think you're
going
going
to
to be more satisfied if you very
not worried if I
slowly
get too
build
much.
those layers.
If it's too dark, I'm not worried about that right now. Don't worry about that. Just take a hint of it over there, maybe just a hint of it in there. Put little bits of it here. Just with the tip of my brush. And a good amount here under his tail where it's nice and dark from a shadow.
Yvonne says that's totally my frustration with watercolor.
Watch this.
Tell me about it, Yvonne. Tell me.
Dry it on my paper towel.
Give me specifics. Let's talk about that.
I'm going to come into his face here. I've got a little bit of a puddle. I'm just going to touch the tip of the brush to it. I'm not touching the paper. I'm only touching that puddle, the top of the puddle. See, now the puddle's gone. The difference between touching the paper and touching the puddle is if you touch the paper, see how much it removed?
I don't layer.
If you just touch the puddle.
Gotta layer, man. I think that if you can get into the habit of working in layers,
touching the paper there to break up.
Whether you're doing acrylic or watercolor, I think that you will find a place where you are
a little bit
much more satisfied
like that was too
with
dark.
your paintings. You know, you get so much more life
touching the
than
puddle
just going,
right
here's a solid color.
Some of that extra
water.
Or,
you know,
here's
a solid color that I kind of blended another color into.
So I'm going to go to
For me, as soon as I started really getting serious about working in layers, I felt like things changed. Things got better. I was much happier with the things that I was painting.
Now, because the face of my bird is still wet.
Oh man, are we losing our stream?
This Payne's Gray is going to get picked up and spread into the face, and that's exactly what I want. If you don't want that, then you'll want to wait until the face is dry.
No, that's fine. Oh no, it is my player. What is happening here? Hang on, guys. That's my my player for some reason is doing that. I thought it was YouTube. Maybe it was just going too fast for itself. I paused it for a second.
Little bit too, just the tip of the brush. See that? I'm not going flat. I'm not making brush strokes.
All right, let's see if that's better.
The very tip of the brush into that wet paint. If his beak is too dark, you can just come back in with that clean brush.
Uh-oh.
Just lay it flat and pick some of that up.
Am I not broadcasting anymore? What's happening?
And now it's much lighter than it was. Let's travel a little bit of that darker color through the face a bit more.
Oh, dang it.
And if it decides it's done spreading, it's starting to get muddy or too mixed up or whatever, just leave it alone.
Are we back?
Get a hint of that dark color in there too. There we go, I like that.
Here, I'll
See
pause
how
this for a minute. It keeps looking like it's dropping me, and then it's not. I know, I'm totally frozen. Oh, and then I'm bad quality even. Oh wait, are we back? Are we back? Yay! Let's see. Let me look at one thing. I don't think we're totally back.
Didn't spread?
But
that little spot? See. That's because the paper's dry right there. You can either leave that, or if you don't like it, clean, dried off brush, put the belly of your brush right on it.
I'm just pretty sure we're not back.
There we go. No more. And this is still that ultramarine Payne's Gray mixture.
I don't know if you guys can see me. I can't see me.
Just kind of slashing.
I'm not doing anything.
Down the wing.
Let's see.
The color's a little thinner than I need there.
Let me close this. See if that. Yeah, that's what I thought. Frozen again. I don't know what to do. I know. Nelson is our IT support. He should be here. This is... Oh, so you guys can hear me now? Okay, well then I'll answer questions. So Lisa asked if I've ever used gouache, and I have not. I basically know what it is. I know that it's kind of like a mix between watercolor and acrylic, and it's more opaque than watercolor, but I've never used it. That's all I know about it. Let's see. And sorry, I'm eating something too. I'm trying to be very quiet about it. If you guys can still hear me, I'll keep answering questions. Why does that show that it's... I have no idea what's happening here. It looks good. You can see and hear me now? Okay. Because as far as I could tell, everything was still all... Oh yeah, there we go. Okay.
Let's work on his chest.
Yeah, so no, I've never used gouache before.
So I'm going to get a little bit of burnt umber. And I think
what else we got now that we're back? Let's take advantage of this.
There we go. Put a little drop of water in there to thin it down a bit. And right over here, I'm just going to go like that. That's it.
How come I can see myself, but I don't see my video playing? But it is absolutely playing.
Maybe just a little bit at the top, too. Leave some of your lines distinct with an edge. So see, I've got an edge there, I've got an edge there. Everything else is kind of fuzzy. I think that's one of the things that makes watercolor so
Ken
interesting.
asked, what is the difference between Chinese and Western watercolor painting? It seems to... I don't know. But from what I know about Chinese watercolor painting, they use those really large, beautiful brushes for pretty much everything. And I think a lot of
so you're just kind of
Chinese watercolors, at least the ones that I've seen, tend to be very monochromatic. They leave a lot of white space, which I really like. I think a lot of Western watercolor paintings tend to get like hyper realistic and really
a little more Payne's Gray. Let's kind of kick the low light,
trying to make it look like a photo or whatever. And I don't mean to take away from the amount of skill and time and everything that must take, but
I feel like I'm almost
it
done
doesn't
with
do it for me.
With the main part of him anyway.
I like, watercolor is so organic and kind of does these amazing things, whatever it wants to do. So I like to be able to see
right up here in his shoulder
the evidence of the medium and not just this amazing hyper realistic painting at the end.
See, as long as you get to it before it's completely dry, you can make changes. Let's get a bit of that color out of there. Perfect. A little bit of that yellow. Kind of drop that in there. Because you remember, he's got like a little band. That brownish color kind of moves around his neck. And I might have to touch that up later, but that's okay. We'll just keep going.
Dee says, when you practice with sketch pad, how do you make paper not scroll up because of the water?
Dark color, kind of pressed flat.
First, I don't use a sketch pad.
Flat again.
Sketch paper is not made for watercolor, and it doesn't matter what you do, it will curl up. If you're brand new to
watercolor and this
Second of all,
looks intimidating to you,
really any paper is going to curl
worry,
up.
I promise we'll do some.
Maybe not super expensive watercolor paper, but
I just really wanted to do
this paper.
One because
it curls up a little bit, but it's not terrible.
So just adding little streaks of that darker
you can
color
see that the paper in here is kind of bowed a little bit.
Notice here,
I actually prefer to not tape my paper down. Like I taped it down here.
But I thought that this
I really
bird
did that because I thought maybe I should
flowers
try and look a little professional for you guys.
It looks
but
so good in watercolor.
For the most part, I just paint in my book.
So I really wanted to do a watercolor version.
I don't worry about
this,
it curling up.
I promise we'll do.
Because if you're using 140-pound watercolor paper,
some more
it
simple
won't be that
watercolors.
bad.
Just
if
a
you
damp
use
brush
anything
along
under
the back
140
edge of those
pound,
lines, so that
or
it's
anything that's
hard
not
on one
actually
side and a little
watercolor
softer
paper,
on the
even
other.
if you tape it down, it's still going to ripple and buckle up.
Let's get just the tiniest bit of it over here. Really watery version of this. I'm going to put a bit right in here as well. Now in his chest here, I really want to kind of make that pop. So I'm going to grab a little bit of alizarin crimson. A little bit more burnt umber and get kind of this warm brown. Roll a good amount of that off. It's not too much paint. And right here, again, that's it. Just two little brush strokes with my brush flat. And then the belly of my brush, break up a couple of those lines. This really spread quite a bit. Let's see if we can do something there. I'm just kind of picking up any
you can do that, Cindy.
That might be there.
Watercolor and acrylic, you can. They're both pigments, and they're probably the same pigments. They just have
mixture.
Different binders. It should be fine, as long as you don't re-wet the
Let's let that dry
painting.
for a minute before we add the brown.
Just use a spray varnish to protect it.
Just kind of clearing a path, taking out a little bit of that moisture so that blue doesn't.
You can still be super detail oriented with watercolor, Yvonne.
We'll come
it's
back
just
to it.
for me.
I feel like I'm almost done.
When I paint with watercolor, I tend to really open up and
just kind of give
paint much
a little bit of a
freer
lighter area
than with acrylic, and
where his eye is going to be.
That's really exciting for me. But
leading to his face.
The very thinness of the paint means that you can really get in there with teeny brushes,
and then we'll come back and we'll make some adjustments.
Do super
in the meantime,
tight,
we'll work on
teeny
the
details.
Branches. I'm going to get some Payne's Gray.
Welcome, Katrina. That sounds like fun. I've always wanted to do one of those.
Some burnt umber. Get this nice dark brown color. Add a little extra water. And I'm just going to start laying in my branches very loosely. Let them kind of wobble. I'm twisting my brush a little bit, just like I did in the watercolor, or in the acrylic version, sorry.
So I know this is totally off topic, but I'm blaming it on Katrina. She brought it up, so it's her fault. And I want to tell you because I think it's funny. And you can roll your eyes at me if you want. So Katrina said that she was late today because she was stuck in an escape room. And if you're not familiar with those, it's like a thing where you go, and instead of doing like a paint party or something, they lock you in a room with a bunch of strangers, and you all have to find these clues to try and figure out how to escape the room and solve a mystery and everything. So we have a bunch of those around here, and there's one in downtown Salt Lake that's right on a street, like a busy street where there's a lot of pedestrian activity. And there's a window that looks into the room where everybody gets locked. And that window's right on the sidewalk. And the people were in the room doing the little escape thing, and I guess one of the people in the room had a prop gun. It was a gun. And the room they were in was a terrorist threat, something like that. And they were told that there was a bomb strapped to their door. So somebody out on the sidewalks just saw a bunch of people and somebody waving a gun around and called the cops. So the cops show up at the place and they bang on the door to the room where the people are locked. And they said, "Open up, it's the police." And the people in the room thought it was the people who work at the business. So they thought they were actors. And they said, "We can't open the door." And the cops said, "Why?" And they said, "Because there's a bomb strapped to it." So, of course, the cops are like freaking out and everything. And yeah. Anyway, I thought that was funny. That made it all over the news here when that happened. Everybody was laughing. Okay. But we can get back to it now. I'll stop gabbing.
And they should have planned his tail a little bit better. Oh, that's right. We'll just go over top of it. We're going to go pretty dark with a few layers here, so it should cover. And lay in this little branch.
Yes, they do keep changing as they dry. Only for so long, though. And then...
Now, before that dries, we're going to take this dry brush.
Then they stop, but...
And we're going to come along the edge, the top edge here. And clean some of that off so it's not quite so dark up there, because we're going to add some other colors. So I'm dipping into clean water, wiping out my paper towel, and then going back. Wiping out on your paper towels is very important.
Seriously, we have like a...
You're going to start applying a ton of water on here.
We have like almost a 5-minute delay.
You're going to make a puddle, and you're going to lose control of your paint.
Is it really that much?
That's pretty dry right there. Let's see, I'll use just a little bit of extra water. Gonna lay it on there. Let it sit for a second. And it can come back. See? And it comes right up. Now, it's important that you know what your paints do. Not all brands of paint are going to lift this readily. So I encourage you to experiment. Play with your paints, find out how well they lift, if they stain, just do a bunch of exercises and color charts, whatever. That will help you get an idea for what your paint does. If you're using the Dr. P.H. Martin Hydrus paints, I have found that they do not lift anywhere near as readily as these Winsor & Newton paints. Now, sometimes
I don't think you missed the rant, Cindy. I don't remember what the rant was, though, because I'm always just talking, and I don't remember what I was just talking about 3 seconds ago, let alone, an hour ago.
Previous color.
Eileen, I think, is the rant.
I'm going to be doing some of that.
The rant
I absolutely
note taker today. So ask her. I'm sure she'll tell you what it was about.
Something like this, where I know it's not going to lift as well, and I want to use my Winsor & Newton paints.
I'm pretty sure none of you missed the rant. What was it about? Oh, frustration. That's right. I talked about frustration. It seems like I talk about frustration a lot.
For the most
that's because
part,
I hear about it a lot.
Of my branch,
people letting frustration take over them, and
just kind of think about where you might want
stop
to see
them,
moss,
or at least just sapping
where
their joy.
We're lifting is pretty much where we're going to be putting moss.
Frustration is normal.
Let's go ahead and get started on that.
Even if
so, I have this color here. It's
even if I feel like I'm the only person who ever gets frustrated
yellow and blue
when I'm frustrated.
I really like the Gamma-Rouge.
Just like I'm sure all of you do too. You feel like you're the only one
with ultramarine, it makes a really nice green.
Who's having a hard time, or who's struggling, or
when it's super concentrated. Love, love, love this color.
But it's all normal, guys.
Got a little puddle in my ultramarine there already. That might be a little brighter than I want. That's okay. I'll just grab some of, let's see, I'll just take a bit of that red color. That's kind of what I like about watercolors is I feel a little bit freer to just grab whatever colors on my palette and mix it in there. See, I was able to take that green down to a nice muted color.
Did anybody have a hard time
more like what I was
with that part, the kind of lifting the paint
down
off of the branch like that?
Roll off some of that extra paint. And I'm going to come in here and just kind of start laying it in wherever I lifted paint. Lifted that brown. And I'm not even trying to fill all of it in. Some of it is still showing. And sometimes I take the green color over top of an area that I didn't lift. All of that is going to help you get a little bit of variation. See, don't draw a line. Don't just, paint in the entire branch with the green. See, I applied it almost randomly. Clean brush, wiped off. Let's just break up some of those lines, soften the color in some places. I'm just looking for variation. And that's all I'm wanting you to do. Just look for variation. Just decide, I think I'm going to lighten it there.
Oh, sorry.
Decide, I like that hard line,
thing.
I'm going to leave it, but I'm going to take this one away. There's not a right and wrong. I know that when we're first learning something, we second guess all of the decisions we make. And we think, what would somebody who knew what they were doing do?
Thank you so much, Mel. I think that I work really hard to break things down because I know that when I'm learning something,
learning about watercolor.
You can't just tell me, okay, do that.
I swore off watercolor for years.
Because if I don't
assuming
know exactly
you made a mistake,
how
that was it. You were
why,
stuck with
more
it.
importantly, why I'm doing that,
discovered that that's really not
then
true.
I'm either not going to do it, or I'm not going to remember it, or I'm not going to do it right.
Makes me feel
so I know that I learn like that, so I guess I assume that everybody does.
With something.
So I want to get down to the tiniest detail of all of it, so that you know exactly how and why to do something.
Other paintings that I've done. I'm like, I wouldn't.
Audrey used a paper towel to lift off the paint. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. And we will be using paper towels
made for watercolor.
to lift paint later as well. I didn't want to do it on this one because I didn't feel like it was necessary. My brush did it
add some
just
water,
fine,
get it nice
and it's a much smaller area. But like when you start doing things like clouds,
I'm just going to kind of touch it into some of
this. We'll be using paper towels. Absolutely,
areas that are nice and bright with this mossy color. I'm not putting it on all of the green.
With watercolor, Cindy, you scraped off the watercolor with a credit card. Yeah, you can do things like that. You can use palette knife. I don't like that. I'm going to show you guys a couple of really cool tricks with palette knife and watercolor. I know, right? Watercolor and palette knife. We're going to do it.
I think
it's going to be awesome.
If you're new to watercolor, I think that the most important things you need to learn are that you start with your lightest.
Yeah, Deb said that the randomness of lifting
less saturated colors
was very satisfying. It really is.
Your darkest, most saturated colors.
It's kind of exciting to not be able to fully predict what the watercolor is going to do. Is it going to lift? If it does lift, is it going to lift all the way to white, or is it going to leave a stain?
Working loose.
All of that. It is. It's really fun.
Watercolor really does whatever it wants to do.
On your
toes. Take advantage of
that.
Just like I said. Understand that watercolor
it does whatever it wants to do.
Has its own ideas of what it wants to do.
So let it do it.
And if you allow it to do that and don't fight it, I think that it can be very, very rewarding. Mm-hmm. I'm just taking a pinch of this.
I know that when I first started using watercolor, this time, anyway,
spots on the underside.
I tried using it years ago. I'm talking like 10 years ago,
in the whole
more.
Area.
And I was like, watercolor sucks. This is not for me.
So I can just come in and break up with this dry brush.
Yeah, it was
these hard lines that I didn't like.
But it was really because I didn't...
Just kind of going
I wasn't even really a painter then at all. But when I started using it this time, so in October, it was almost immediate. I was like, this is incredible. The very first time I did it, even though what I did probably didn't turn out real great. I was like,
particularly right here, that branch kind of got away from
I love
me.
watercolor, and now
So
I just can't
I'm
get
just
enough
gonna
of
fill
it.
it in and make it look like it didn't get away from me. I meant for the branch to be that big.
Oh, sorry, Mel. Did I call you a he? Deb asked if this is why most sketch boxes include a sponge. I've never bought a sketch box, so I don't know.
Seriously intimidating. But don't approach it the same way as you do acrylic.
Dee, you can do exactly anything you want to do.
Try to do a watercolor
Absolutely.
painting, expecting it to do what acrylic does, or, you know, even just applying it the way you would acrylic, then I think you're going to struggle.
Oh, hang on. Let's talk about something
now let's let our branch
real quick.
dry.
Just real quick. We're going to go over here. Okay. So when I'm watching my video, and I'm seeing myself, you know, wipe my brush, I'm going to show you what it looks like I'm doing in the video, and it makes me nervous, even though I know that I'm not doing that. It looks like I'm going like that, pinching the bristles really hard, and then pulling the brush so that I'm like yanking on the bristles. And absolutely, without a doubt, I am not doing that. Please don't do that. That will destroy your brush. If you're pulling on these bristles, after a little while, one day you're going to do that and the bristles are going to come out. You're going to remove them. All I'm doing is, it looks like I'm pinching it, but I'm not. I'm kind of pinching the paper towel like that. This is just in there, and it's just going like that. I'm just like running the brush through it, but my fingers are not pinched. I'm not clamping down on it. So that's all I'm doing. If you need it to dry more than that, do it that way. See how my brush is angled? It's like flat, but do not pinch it and then pull it, okay? Because you will break your poor brushes. And that's another rant for you. I felt like that was a very important rant because I know that it really looks like that's what I'm doing here.
His eyes.
It's yanking on those bristles.
Gray. Good amount, pretty dark. And give him a little eye. Just with the tip of the brush. While we're in that Payne's Gray, actually.
Ah, Payne's Gray.
It's still a pretty thin version of it. I'm just going to kind of come in here and just do a few little details.
I know we've talked about it before. There's a lot of people who say never use black paint. And I'm one who's like, heck yes, you can use black paint, but maybe not all the time, okay? Sometimes chromatic black is really fun. But in
knock them back a bit.
Watercolor, like, I almost never use black. I have lamp black in my palette that you saw there, and I almost never use it.
That's pretty dry.
The rainy window here is one of the few times that I actually use black. If you see anything in one of my watercolor paintings that looks like black, it's probably Payne's Gray.
Little hint.
Just like the beak on the bird and the eye, they look like black, and it's Payne's Gray.
The water that's on there kind of take
it just has a little bit more life to it because it's got that ultramarine in it. It's got some
too
warm
much water,
brown undertones.
Remember,
and
just
I
touch the surface of the puddle with the
watercolor.
If you go all the way to the
looks
paper,
a lot more
you're going to make a white spot.
Boring than in acrylic.
If you
but
want a white
that's just
spot,
me. I'm never going to rant at you and tell you not to use black watercolor paint.
To the paper. Let's give him some legs. So my Payne's Gray again.
Night Shaddy, thanks for coming.
And we'll just come from somewhere in here. Draw a leg down to the branch. If your branch is still
I'm
wet,
glad that you like the brushes
legs.
for watercolor too, Deb.
I think my branch is good. I'm going to take a little toe out like that. And another little toe there.
Rename Payne's Gray to Jane's Gray. Hey, I'm down. Let's make that happen.
If you are one of those people who likes acrylic because of easy cleanup, you're gonna love watercolor. It's such easy cleanup. Just a damp brush, wet all that old paint down, wipe it away with a paper towel. If I didn't have my paints that lived in this palette, I could just go run it under the faucet. There. Okay, let's do our flowers. So I'm going to use my number 8 filbert.
Oh,
wet it in my
we're
jar.
almost done. I didn't realize that we were that close to being done.
This is cadmium red medium. Any red you have will work.
So anybody who did this watercolor one, tell me what.
And I'm really
tell me
going to do
what
these
brand
the
of paint
exact
you
same way as I
used.
did
You
in the
know,
acrylic
even if
video.
it was like a cheap
So
dollar
just
store
come here and
pan
with
of
the edge of my
paint.
brush, see how I'm
There's
using it on
nothing
the
wrong
edge,
with
not
that.
flat.
I'm never
I'm
going
gonna
to
go
be
back and forth. So we'll
a
say
materials snob at you
that,
and tell you that you
like
use the wrong
that.
materials. But, excuse me, I'm interested in
Kind of random.
finding out what materials you guys used.
We'll have another one over here. Let's get a little bit of gamboge.
See, there, I'm using some Cambouche.
And we'll get a couple in there. And I love the way that it pulls that red into it.
That and Payne's Gray, my favorite colors.
And a little bit of alizarin. Just kind of like one here and there. You know, those are kind of puddled. I think I'm going to let those flowers dry before I continue with the alizarin. Let's do the stems. So I'm going to get a little gamboge, a little ultramarine, some of that red color again.
Daniel Smith. I've never heard of that before. Where did you get those, Cindy? Did you order them online?
Maybe some of that red color.
Heck yeah. Dollar store paints for the win.
Tone it down. See, I can go into
I think, you know, once
a million
you,
different colors.
if you
on my
decide
palette
that
until I've got the
watercolor is
right
something
one.
you really enjoy, you
I feel
probably
like I have
will
to be
want to
quite as
move,
precise
you
with
know,
my
to
colors
a little
with
bit higher
watercolor
quality
as
paint.
with
But
acrylic.
absolutely. I mean, before you
that's
go
kind of a
out and
large
spend
cluster.
a bunch of money on
a little bit down.
paints
Don't
that
let
you
it
may
touch
decide
your
that
flower,
you don't
though,
want anything
especially
to
where
do
those
with.
flowers are still
Heck yeah,
wet,
dollar store paints.
because you might suck some of the green
Perfectly
into
fine.
it.
The Mozart watercolor brush pens.
And
Oh yeah,
sometimes
Audrey
that would
used
be
those
okay,
pens
but
that
I
she
feel
got
like
for her
for these
birthday.
colors, that's not what I want to see.
I bought some of the Artesia ones,
little
and
bud.
I haven't had time to use them
Maybe
yet.
Maybe another
Rita
one.
was telling me
Okay.
that they were super awesome, and she does those beautiful watercolor cards with them. So I got some and haven't done anything with it. So you guys that are in Patreon, you saw that I updated the rewards, and the $15 reward. I told you that you would be getting some doodles and stuff, and so I think that probably some of the doodles you'll be getting, at least for the next month or so, they're probably going to be with
Got my
those
green in that
watercolor
flower.
pens, because I need
That's
to
okay.
use them. I haven't used them
You
at
can
all
either
yet.
decide it's not a big deal and
So
leave
maybe
it,
tonight
or
I'll
take your
tear
dry
through
brush
a couple of pages and do a few doodles with those watercolor pens,
and
try them
just kinda
out,
touch
and
that.
then those will be the images that
Take
you
it
get
off.
for
While
March.
everything's drying, I'm just going to get some gamboge with some water, sorry. I'm just going to kind of pop a few bright spots.
Yeah, I keep hearing people talking about different
Moss
Chinese
in here.
watercolors. There's a few different brands that I
Everything should be
keep hearing
pretty
about
dry,
that sound really
and you can
interesting.
finish up.
Cindy, you bought them at Blick. Okay. Do I have stories on why I like those colors, Mel asked? I don't. I
That's
just,
actually
you know,
a little drip
I
of water. I'm
find
gonna put it
that
into the
I
the
get
end of
super
each one of these
attracted
buds.
to specific colors, and it will
'Cause
change.
my buds are pretty much
You
dry.
know, for like a year, I'll be
just
in
gonna
love
let
with
that
this
sit there for
one
a second.
color. It is my color, and
my
it is
brush.
in every painting
Dry
I
it
use.
really good on my paper towel.
And then
I'm going to come
all of a
back
sudden one day,
touch
I don't
all the
want
way down
anything
to
to
the
do with
paper
that color. I
and
can't
look.
stand it. I
Removed
never
a lot
use
of
it
that dark
again.
color in the
I have
tip
8
of the
tubes
buds.
of it, and they all go
So I'm
bad
gonna
because
get
I
to the
don't touch it
buds.
anymore. And
A
now I'm
little
on
bit
to a
brighter.
different color. So I think my color
Some
right now,
gamboge.
I actually have
That in
3
there.
colors right now that I'm kind of like that with acrylic anyway. With acrylic, it's quinacridone, cad red medium, and cad
Okay,
yellow
I've got my
medium.
white watercolor.
With
And this white is not very opaque.
with watercolor, it's
I
Payne's
know you
Gray,
think white,
Gamboge.
opaque, it's going to cover
and-
everything. It's really not. Still using
You
my
guys
number
have
2.
the set number 1 of
Load
the
up with some of
Doc
them.
Martens Hydrus paints.
I'm going to start giving them just a few little details.
There
So right
is a
around
little
the
bit
edge
of
his
magic
eye.
hiding in it. I know that sounds
It
really
is going to
stupid,
dry a little bit more
but it's
transparent
true.
than
In fact, I'm going to pause this for just a
Feel
second,
around.
and let's go over here for just a minute. I want to show you something because so this is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus. This is set number 1. So if you were ever considering getting these paints, really you only need set number 1. Once in a while in a video, I might use a color from one of the other sets, but don't get too hung up on using the exact same colors. Anyway, I tell you get this one because it has gamboge. Here's the gamboge in the Hydrus, and it also has this magical color called cobalt violet. It's essentially Diox purple. It's really close to Diox. But let me show you this beautiful thing that happens. So I'm gonna take, come on, I haven't played with these much lately. I've been using my Winsor & Newtons lately. I'm gonna put a drop of this cobalt violet, and I'm gonna put 2 drops of gamboge. And this is a lot of paint, but I'm just using it for an example. Watch, this is gonna be magic. This is my favorite color combination in the entire world. This is that brown that I was telling you about, that once you use this brown, no brown will ever cut it for you ever again. This is such a rich and absolutely gorgeous color. If I need brown watercolor, that is what I use. I don't use the, like, look at how boring, where did my, there they are. Look at how boring burnt umber is next to that, watch. Burnt umber is so boring now. Look at that. I don't know, you guys might not be able to tell. To me, this is like so gold, and this is like, looks like melted chocolate. I think it's a really boring brown. It's kind of red, but anyway, that is my very favorite color mixture right now. And I've done whole paintings using nothing but this color mixture and Payne's Gray, and that's it. But I like crazy color mixtures.
Little dot in there. If you happen to get too much of the white and think he looks creepy, then clean dry brush. Just run the tip of it over, but notice my brush is kind of flat.
Yeah, the Doc Martens, they are on the expensive side. However, if you can get them with a coupon,
Let's give him some.
you can get them for a really good price, and
A little bit of some
they
lighter
last
spots
for so
behind
long.
his
I mean,
eye, just kind of
like I said,
scribbling that on.
the gamboge is probably
You will be
my
able to
most
see it,
used
but it
color
won't
from
cover
them,
like titanium.
and it's still halfway
Slash
full.
a few of
And I
those
use it on its
together.
own and mix it with this one. So chances are, if I'm using my P.H. Martins, I'm using
Just a
gamboge.
couple little
Absolutely.
highlights.
This is by far the
You're
color
just
I
kind
use
of
the most.
Scribbling with the tip.
And I mean, you saw that 3 drops of paint,
Just get the
and
purple
with
going
enough
on
water,
here.
because I didn't really try it, but with enough water,
Actually,
I
I
could
don't
have
do that.
covered that entire sheet of
I'm going
paper.
to take this loaded up
with 3
flat, and I'm going
drops.
to go.
And then when they run out,
that's all the highlight.
You can get them on Blick's website for like
one right there,
like $5.
Wing meets his tail
per bottle,
just to make sure that we've got that differentiation.
And per ounce, there's more in that bottle than in a tube of the Winsor and Newton paints, which are super cheap.
Even though those colors
so I think it ends up working out to be about the same.
You can still see them.
But yes, initially to buy one of these packages, it's not cheap. They're like $70
a little
regular
bit
price.
Of white. But like I said, I know there's people who one of their rules to watercolor is never use white watercolor paint.
Deb got the new Liquitex muted inks.
I think
and
they
wants
make
to
it
know
for
if
a
they
reason.
work well with watercolors. You know
And
what?
if you
I
can
don't
figure out a
know.
way to
I should
use
experiment with that. I have a
in the way
couple
that
of
you like,
Liquitex
there's
inks.
nothing wrong with it. I'm going to take a tiny point of it.
Just from the couple of
Right on
times
top
that
of
I've
the
used
heat.
the inks, I can tell you that
And so you can
they
already
are
tell
so
that is
different
fading as it
than
dries. It's
watercolor.
not drying opaque white.
So I know the Hydrus comes in a tube near, in the bottle with the eyedropper. That's about where the similarities to the ink and.
It dribbled on him.
But yeah, I should try and mix
immediately.
Excuse
so
me,
it
I
doesn't
like
get the
hiccups or
opportunity
something.
to re-wet the paint.
And see what happens.
Our flowers
and
are about dry.
And let you know.
We should be
let
good
you know what
to go
happens.
ahead
The inks
and
don't
finish them.
flow
So
quite
let's get
like
our
watercolor
alizarin
does.
again. And we'll just kind of
Told you guys
dash
that color was beautiful,
alizarin
didn't I?
here and there.
I might have a painting where I did just Payne's Gray and that Gambouge
Grab a little
purple
point
mixture.
of ultramarine and mix it in there with it.
Let me see what I got here.
Actually, no, I'm not, because that makes a nice bright purple. I did that.
And then,
in
you know,
the acrylic
depending on
video
if you
too.
add more Gambouge or
my
if you
problem
add
is-
more of the violet, kind of shifts the
This
color one
cadmium red.
direction or the other.
Phthalo ultramarine blue. See, I don't even know what colors I'm using. All right, cadmium red,
Oh,
ultramarine blue.
this one is... Someday we'll get through this video, huh? This one, you can't really tell. It just looks gray to you guys, but in person, this is like blue. It's like navy blue, but this is the Hydrus Payne's Gray. So you see the difference there? I mean, they're totally different colors, but also you can see how smooth the Hydrus is. There's no separating in there, where this one is so separated. So that's just an example of how different brands are going to do different things, and they can look totally different, even the exact same color between two different brands.
Nice dark
we're
color.
almost done.
But very little paint. Wipe a lot of that off. And just come in here to where you put some alizarin.
I don't really have anything good in here.
Touch it into there.
A lot of
Not a ton.
junk.
You don't want it to start spreading and taking over.
Oh,
I feel like I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm done.
yeah, he's done. So we can stop pretending like we're gonna watch the video, or I can anyway. So this is something that I like to do sometimes with watercolor, because very rarely do I use any of at least the Hydrus colors. Very rarely do I actually just use the color as it looks in the bottle. I want to find the perfect color to mix it with. I like customization. So I'll mix up a bunch of random colors, or like 3 little pools of colors that are mixed, paint kind of a little color chart, and then just something super fast with them. So this is one that I did a while ago, and this is the Gambouge purple mixture. This one, is it that one? Yeah. I know it looks purple to you guys there. It's not purple. But this one is quinacridone mixed with phthalo green. And even in acrylic they make a gorgeous navy blue. And then this one, I believe, was... It was either ultramarine and cad red medium, or it was phthalo blue and cad red medium. But anyway, you know, just grab some random colors and just kind of that stupid car goes by here every day and it's really loud. And just do like a 5-minute, seriously, this took me about 5 minutes to paint. Give yourself 5 minutes to just like slash colors on in a shape of a landscape or something. Don't sit and micromanage it. Give yourself 5 minutes to do it, and then kind of sit back and take stock and look at what happened. You know, I have broken edges here. How did I do that? I have colors that fuzzed up into the sky. How did I do that? Why did that happen? Just kind of try and analyze it. And I think doing little things like that will help you get the hang of what your paints do. And then also color charts. Make color charts. These are just the Hydrus paints. I went and made just like a little tester of each of my Hydrus colors. But yeah, every time you pick up your paints, that doesn't mean that you have to make a painting and that you have to make an amazing painting. Every time you pick up your paints, you should learn something, even if that means that all you paint is this, or that all you paint is, you know, one of these little 5-minute color studies. But you need to not put expectations on yourself and give yourself the opportunity to experiment and play, and most importantly, you guys, have fun. Because if it's all about sitting here and getting frustrated and why isn't this working and I don't know what I'm doing and how do I get it to do that and why can't I do that, it's not going to be fun. You're not going to do it for very long. Make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to sit and do nothing but have fun. You know, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you saw my post earlier this week on Monday. Well, it was about Mondays, where I've been working on that large painting that I talked about earlier, just painting the whole thing with the palm of my hand. And that whole thing is about enjoying myself, kind of getting in the zone and just being there, you know. And really, I don't care what happens to that painting. I mean, it's huge, and I'm putting hours into it. I mean, one day I spent an entire day painting on it, and I really don't care what happens to it. If it fell over and got a hole punched in it, I'd be like, all right, I'll just start another one. If tomorrow I decide to put another color on top of it, and I'm like, that looks awful, I don't even care. It doesn't matter, because my goal isn't to create this amazing painting or to have something wonderful to, you know, say, those 400 hours, that's what came out of it. I don't need anything like that. I'm doing it so that I can have fun and find fulfillment in what it is that I'm doing. But the only way that you can find that place is to drop all expectations, to not pressure yourself, to really not care what happens, you know? I mean, what do we really need to care what our painting looks like? Honestly, I mean, I know that sounds like a stupid question. To some extent, I have to care about that because you guys aren't going to want to watch a video that looks like crap, right? But if it's a painting that you're just sitting down to paint, to learn something, why does it matter what it looks like? I don't think it matters. What matters is that you enjoy it and that you give yourself the opportunity to learn and to grow. So there is the serious rant for the day. That's what I want you guys to take away from today. Whether you're doing acrylic or watercolor, whatever it is, I want you to be patient and have fun and just experience painting, you know. That's one to grow on. So I think I'm probably done. That was a really long rant, and I apologize. And I missed a whole bunch of stuff. All right, I'm going to read through this. So if you have other questions, feel free to post them. I am going through questions now. When I get to the bottom, if there's no more questions, we're going to call it a day. All right, let's see. There's a Jerry's in Phoenix, like a Jerry's Art around a store. I didn't know that they had brick and mortar stores. The problem right now is we have such a delay, almost like a 5-minute delay. So I'm reading your questions and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what they're referring to. And if I ask, they're not going to know because it'll then be like 10 minutes after they made that comment. No, Deb, you never need someone to give you permission to play. Actually, that's not true. You do. You need somebody to give you permission to play. And that person is you. And you have to be willing to give yourself that permission, you know, to set time aside for yourself. I just put on my little creepy podcast show that I like to listen to, and I pay attention to what they're saying. I pay attention to the way the paint feels in my hand, and I don't care what the painting looks like. And because of that, I'm kind of proud of how the painting's looking. Like, I think it's looking pretty good. I'm excited about it. But if I ruined it, that's okay. Best rant of the day. Thanks, guys. I'm glad that you guys liked my rant. I will have you know that all of my rants are organic and non-GMO. I don't know what that meant. Okay. So, any other questions, guys? If not, then we're gonna say goodbye because I gotta get home. I have 2 more little paintings to do, and yeah, so you guys won't get the video until tomorrow. I'm still working on finishing it. Hopefully I can get it uploaded tonight, and then you guys will get it tomorrow. So yes, we need pizza.